Hello, darkness, my old friends. We have come to visit you again.
What's up, internets? How's it going today?
On a Friday, TGIF. Wow, what a treat, Dave. Tell them why they're getting us on a Friday. A Friday.
It's been a hell of a week.
Yes.
Everybody in my family is sick, and this is actually the second time that we rescheduled this. The first time we were doing it before we even started the lives. We were going to do this with them and do it pre-recorded. We had to cancel that. I can't even remember why. And then, this week, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that happened this week that almost tried to prevent this from happening altogether.
Are you trying to say this was a barbaric week?
This was a...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. We'll get into that. We're going to be talking about Barbarian today. You may or may not have heard of this movie. It has been sweeping the globe, #1 box office, like best horror film. #1 box office until Avatar comes out this weekend, I guess. But we were trying to talk about it back in September to have ready for October. That didn't really work out. So we're here. We're here. Better late than never, right?
And we're here and we're fear.
You're fucking tame for a Friday night.
What does that mean?
Like, it's weird that you're more
calm on a Friday
than
evening.
On a Tuesday evening.
Hey man, it's the weekdays that get me the most. It's not the weekends. So yeah, no, I'm fine. I'm cool, man.
The reason why we are covering this movie is because we do our friends' favorite films. We do it live now, and our friends are going to be joining us in about an hour. Gregory Price, and he's bringing his friend Justin Hilton. So Justin Hilton recommended Barbarian to Greg Price. Greg Price recommended it to us. So all four of us are going to be talking about it tonight.
I'm excited.
Let's throw up the Barbarian cover so they can see. That's
all right. All right. And if you haven't seen it and you don't care about spoilers, hell, you got at least an hour to go watch an hour of it and come back and talk to it about us.
Yeah. And if you're a fan of Whitest Kids You Know, which you should be a fan of Whitest Kids You Know, it's a hilarious, very just anarchy sketch comedy show. Zach Kuperstein is one of the creators of that show, along with rest in peace Trevor Moore. But Zach Kuperstein went on, much like Jordan Peele, from comedy, sketch, television series to indie art house horror film. So yeah, Whitest Kids You Know. There they are. There they are, right there. They are the whitest kids you know. Where's the?
Just after 6, but be careful. I'm gonna save you right there. I'm gonna save you right there.
Where's the representation?
Well, it's in the name of the show.
I'm making the Tim Burton argument.
There you go.
And bonus, and we're gonna get into this right now. That guy right there that you see behind the camera.
Who's that, Dave? Could that be the cinematographer?
That is Zach Kuperstein, the cinematographer of Barbarian, and we actually had the pleasure of talking to him.
We did.
Last Monday or this Monday?
This Monday.
We were ready
for all intents and purposes. We talked to him today.
Yeah. So we're gonna run that. So you guys, we talked to him for about 15 minutes, and when we come back from that, Greg will be here, Justin will be here, and we'll get into our thoughts about Barbarian. Before we run that, let's check the comments real quick.
We got comments?
Oh man, I missed Mathis. Well, first of all,
give Mathis a little something here.
James MCD, before we get to Mathis, James MCD posted this on like Monday last week or Tuesday when we were originally going to do the episode. He said he's so excited about this episode. This was one of my top 10 favorite movies of the year. I hope it doesn't get spoiled. I hope it didn't get spoiled for you, because this movie is most fun when you go in blind. Yeah, very well said. It absolutely is. Mathis says tamed, Rizzy unchained.
I like that. Look at Angela. Under the weather, but on the keyboard.
WKYK. Whitest Kids You Know.
Oh, I thought you were saying when you know, you know. I thought that was some acronym. IK.
Yeah, it actually works. All right. Before we play that, we're gonna run the intro real quick.
But we want you guys to know we are coming back. So if you tune in and we're not here, it's still live.
See us here the whole time.
One of us.
It's like old school days. We're gonna be technically live, but pre-recorded. But yeah, we will be back live by like 8:10, 8:20.
So get some pizza, some mini pizzas. Watch My Cousin Is Vinny. Subscribe to TTFT Live.
Sit here and watch Zach Kuperstein, the cinematographer, Barbarian, dump some like deep-seated knowledge about how this movie was made. If you're a fan of Barbarian, if you saw it and you liked it at all, you're going to want to watch this next 50 minutes because this isn't no normal interview. He gets into the technicalities. He gets into the shit of how this shit was done.
I finally figured out how to get some energy out of him. You see what I just did there? That was the intro I was waiting on all this time, and you just did it.
Yeah, well, motherfucker. Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
Ow!
And I'm back.
Hello.
All right, let's run that.
Roll that beautiful bean footage.
We'll see you guys shortly. How do
I just did it. You made my whole thing mess up.
Let's get into Barbarian. I know you kind of already touched on a little bit like how you got involved with the project, but I was curious if you knew of like Whitest Kids You Know or Zach Kreger going into it and how that connection happened.
I didn't know about Whitest Kids You Know or Zach, and the connection happened because the producers, Rafi and JD, who have their company Boulder Light, they produced The Vigil, which is another horror movie that I shot, and really got to know them through that project, and we had stayed in touch, and we were kind of mutual fans of each other and wanted to do something again, and they brought the script to me, and I was the timing worked out, and I was kind of lucky enough that they brought me to Zach and Zach to me, and the funny thing is I was late for our first interview, and I am never late. I'm like really insist on being on time, but I was out walking the dog, and it was kind of like still lockdown-y pandemic time. And I like ran back I was out in the field and saw an email from him just like, hey, are you still coming to I was like, I just like ran back down the block and sat down, and I was totally out of breath, and sat down at the computer and turned it on, and was like, hey man, I'm really sorry, the dog, blah, blah. He's like, it's fine. And then I think I forget whether he commented on it or not, but I think he was more offended somehow by my t-shirt. I had like a Doors shirt on, and he was like, he kept making fun of me for that. I don't know why. But
that's funny to hear that. Just watching all of it there, when they started doing the podcast the video podcast during the pandemic, he seemed like he was the very particular one of the group that would just get really fixated on something. They get frustrated, or not frustrated is the wrong word, but he would
Fixated.
Yeah. He was just the he's that guy in the group that'll call you out on your shit, be really particular about something.
No, I did. I want to.
Oh, sorry. We really hit it off, though. I would say, like, aside from me being late and the t-shirt, it was a really good first meeting, and I could tell, like, he had such a clear vision for the script, and since he wrote the script, he had just great ideas about where he wanted to go with it, and was super cleer on that. And you're right, he can fixate on something, but for good reason, and I really appreciated that. I could see that in him. So, truly, it was an incredible collaboration, and I can't wait to work with him again. I think it's gonna be fun.
Now, speaking of working with him again, now from all the research I did, this Barbarian may have just, of course, been released, but it's been 10 years in the making from everything I researched as far as him trying to get it prepared. And speaking of preparation, it seems like you're very big yourself on preparations, from discussions with the director, shot listing, photo boarding, and all these things before the camera rolls. So let me ask you this: what is the greatest advantage to knowing how much work has been put in before and how much work's going to go into it before the cameras even roll, versus showing up like, okay, so what are we doing? What's going on here?
Yeah, I mean, it's efficiency is the biggest advantage, and just especially on an independent film, you don't have time ever to do anything. So if you can spend that time, you do have to spend that time somewhere to have that creative collaboration and decide what the shots are going to be and how it's all going to work. So you can either spend that where only two people in a room are there to do the work, or you can spend it when, you've got 100 people on set waiting for you to roll, and, you're paying all those people to be there. So it's time much better spent in prep than while you're shooting. So I think it's really all about time is the biggest thing. There are many other advantages though. And I think it's, first, it's like getting me and the director on the same page creatively, making sure that I understand what the director wants and what they need, and that we can be very clear on those things. So if, for example, you write in a shot list a close-up, right? I might picture in my head, in my mind's eye, a close-up like this, and the director might be picturing it here. And until we've both looked at a photo board and looked at the lens and seen that, we don't know what a close-up really is, or what's exactly in the background, or how much on the eye line is that. And all those little things make a big difference. And you don't want to be having a debate about those on the day. So if you can plan that to the nth degree, you're much better off. So that's a huge advantage. And then the other advantage is the crew morale, which I was talking about. So everybody has a much better time when you're more efficient. Everybody feels like they can do their job better and feels better about that when you have that plan. And then I also take it to the point of getting stills from the whole project, where it kind of pairs up with the photo boards. So I have the DIT or data manager or dailies people produce frame grabs from the movie, and that becomes a photo board log of what we've shot so far. And I can use that on set, and it's all in a shared format, like in a Dropbox or a Google Drive or something, where everybody has access to the photo boards and the shot lists, so that they can look ahead and know what they need to do. The art department can, look at, oh, I'm going to see this wall, but not that wall. Great. I don't need to spend any resources or anything on that wall. So let's just focus here and make this wall look great. But then with the stills, I can show everybody the next day, here's the work we did yesterday. And it makes everybody feel really good about a project that they're working on, and can see their contribution to the project. I can show it on my phone on set, be like, here's the thing that we just did yesterday. Isn't that awesome what we're making? And everybody's like, oh my God, looks great. Like, this is so cool what we're making. And then that gets them motivated for their work that day and the next day and the next day. And it's all kind of a system of preparation and follow through on that gets everybody excited about it, and makes a better product, I think. So
I'm sure it keeps trust really high too, when they're seeing that, like, oh, when we spent that extra time putting those lights there or doing this particular thing, you see it the next day, how good it looks. Is like that trust when you ask, when next tomorrow, when we ask to move the lights over here or over there, there's more of like, okay, I know this is for, like, we're not making junk here. This looks really good.
That too, also for the actors, as well as if he's showing, like you said, everybody has access to the drive. If I know that, hey, when they're doing an ECU or extreme close-up or a close-up, when they're on me, when I hear that now as an actor, I now know, if I wasn't already turning it on, let me really turn it on now. So morale, like you said,
you think about like that when we talked to somebody who did Django Unchained, and how Leonardo DiCaprio talked to the cinematographer about, like, where are you going to be at on me on this one? So he knew where to focus his performance at. And I feel like that's got to be really helpful for the actors too, to be able to know exactly where they're to be able to see it, because not everybody speaks camera language.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a really good point. And I think a huge part of the prep process is also making that information available in as many modes as possible, because people do consume information in different ways. So we have a written shot list. We have for the people who like to read things, we have photo boards for people who like to see things. And then there's some people who really like to see top-down floor plans. And we have the blocking drawn out in the different camera positions. And like, suddenly that makes it a lot clearer. And I like all three. And depending on the scene and the moment, I'll refer to all three of them to help, figure out what exactly are we going to see, and what's the best way to structure the day, and all that. And to your point about moving lights and putting in all that extra work, I'm remembering a moment and earning the trust. Remembering a moment on Eyes of My Mother where it was near the end of the shoot, and I think we were doing like a night exterior, and we had a 4K, our biggest light. We were like, this is our big light. And it was, and we had like run a lot of power to it. And it was like at the bottom of this hill. And we the whole time kind of been shooting up and down the hill and up in the woods, back on the hill, whatever. And I remember kind of realizing we're like, about to go shoot this scene on the hill, and all the power was run, and the 4K was at the bottom of the hill. And I was like, oh no, like, we have this shot coming up, and the light really needs to be at the top of the hill. And that means like not only moving the light, but rerunning all this cable, like hundreds of feet of cable. And it was a very small team. So I turned to the Best Electric and I was like, Alec, like, I think we got to move the light up the hill. I'm so sorry. And I hate to do this to you. And he just looked at me and he goes, all right, give me a minute. And he just like went and did it, because he knew, like, it was the right choice. It was the right thing to do for the moment. And he cared about the film, and he had seen stills as we were going. And I think we were able to even show footage to the crew throughout that project, because it was a pretty small crew. And we were, so he was able to, stay motivated and just get excited about that and move the cable, and it made that shot in that moment that much better. So.
Well, I wanted to congratulate you all. Well, first of all, Barbarian is awesome. And what I noticed about was there's like you seem to have a signature to your visual style that I immediately picked up on watching the movie. Like some things are just kind of like cookie cutter, paint by number. You could just kind of tell. But there's like, when you watch Barbarian, there's just, I can't put it into words, but it just, like, if I saw something else that you did, I'd be able to say, oh, that's Kuperstein, because I saw Barbarian. You just have a very distinct flavor to it. And on that, I wanted to, there's a trivia thing on IMDb that says, it says it's not officially credited in any way, but Jordan Peele was an invisible hand in shaping the eventual story. Star Georgina Campbell tells IndieWire in an interview that writer-director Zach Kuperstein is good friends with Jordan Peele, and I think he spoke to Jordan Peele a lot while he was writing the film, and Jordan Peele saw an early cut of it as well. So he definitely was kind of part of the essence of the movie. And I attached that trivia to what I just said, because that was like, your visual style was something that I think lent to the monkey paw-esque flavor to the film, where it felt like things were very intentional, especially for a horror film, both in its cinematography and the blocking and the subtle spotlights on social issues within the story. But mainly it was like, just that, like in a horror film, you just expect a certain kind of, and like cinematography is not like the focus. Your perspective isn't really the important thing. The important thing is usually what's on the camera, not the angle and the blocking and the lighting and everything. And with this movie, it was in that it's like an art film disguised as a horror film, and a lot of the ways that monkey paw films are. So I was wondering if you could speak to that at all, because I thought it was interesting that they both came from sketch comedy series on television, and then pivoted inexplicably into horror feature film, and very successfully at that. So I was wondering if you had any idea about the Jordan Peele connection, and like if you noticed that, like if you picked up on that about yourself, that you have that there's that intention in your cinematography that comes through.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to speak to there. I think the definitely Jordan was involved. I haven't met him, but I definitely heard from Zach frequently that like he talked to Jordan the other day and told him about something, and he was excited about something, and I'm like, okay, cool, great. There was a shot in particular that Zach and I were very collaborative, but also very interested in debating each other and kind of going head to head at times on creative ideas. And I think we were both very interested in letting the best idea win. And there's a shot early in the movie that Zach was really interested in, and I was like, I hate this shot. Like, why are we doing this? And the shot's in the movie, and it's and Zach, I don't know if this is true, but I believe it because Zach said it. He said he showed Jordan the movie, and he goes, apparently Jordan said, I love that shot. That shot's awesome. It's a shot that I hate. I'm like, all right, well,
I can neither confirm nor deny whether that happened. I'm just saying I talked to a guy, Jordan. He loved it.
So I lost that one, but in a good way. It feels good to have lost those battles and feel like the movie.
What a position to put you in, though. If you want to argue with Jordan Peele,
but no, I think he said something that's very important that most creators and artists should aspire to when you're doing a film. Let the best idea win. It's not always going to be yours. Sometimes you may think it, but it's a collaboration, man. Always collaboration.
I just watched an interview with Adam Sandler and Brendan Fraser. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
He corrected him in the interview. He was talking about working on The Whale with Darren Aronofsky, and he said that's why that movie excels so well, is that they had that same kind of relationship where I did not expect Darren Aronofsky to be like, I expected him to be kind of like a Kubrick, a tyrant, and the way Fraser put it was like he said those exact words, let the best idea win. It doesn't matter who it came from.
I love that. Now you were talking about connections earlier here, and I don't know if this is a loose connection. I just have to. I'm going to make sure because I don't know if he's fixated on eyes or not. Follow me on this one here. Now, is Justin Long?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now he earlier we talked about Mother's Eyes,
Mm-hmm.
Jeepers Creepers. What happens to Justin Long? Eyes out. Barbarian. Eyes out. See what I just did there? What is going on with the eyes, man? You tell me.
Eyes are scary. You know, people get freaked out about their eyes. I mean, I get freaked out about my eyes. It's like this is my whole life right here. So I can't.
Yeah.
All right. This, and then you had me watching that bold thing before we did this.
Yeah, I say all the time, if I had to choose between deaf or blindness, I'd choose deafness. Easy.
You don't even
because,
want to hear what shit people have to say now.
I ain't hearing that shit. I want
like not.
Yeah.
All right, now let me ask you this: the visual style from the film Fincher Upstairs, Romney Downstairs, which is a beautiful concept. You just really love Romney, don't you?
And Fincher.
I mean, but you love Romney more.
Rami. Oh, I've been saying Rami my whole life.
Really? Because I've been saying Orchard. Or that's inside joke. Sorry. Okay. So anyway, okay. Fincher Upstairs, Raimi Downstairs here, which is a beautiful concept. Can you expand on where you think that was best reflected in the film? Because again, when you have these two styles here, like I'll let you answer. You're the cinematographer and counselor, if you will, of egos.
Yeah, I mean, in the film, the first act of the movie with Bill and Georgina in the house, it was very much about like having control and building suspense and just letting it simmer as long as possible. And we looked at I think Mindhunter and Seven and those Fincher movies that are sort of classic, or and he's kind of known for this sort of slow paced intensity, right? And the very subtle camera movement, I think, is also a big part of it. And camera movement that's driven by the actors blocking and feels like an invisible hand. You're not necessarily aware of the camera, right? So that inspired all of the shot design for the first chunk of the film. And then as soon as she goes into the basement and opens the door, the camera starts to pick up speed a little bit, but also intensity, and also disconnects it's not necessarily attached to the characters as much as it was upstairs. And I think the prime moment is when Justin is standing in the cusp of the pink room, and the tape measure gets pulled away from him, and the camera kind of goes nuts, and it's like this super wide angle lens and really close to him, and there's just an intensity of it that you wouldn't really see in a Fincher film, right? And it kind of breaks those rules and just amps things up to this like, whoa, it's like almost a comic book with the camera. And I think the audience hopefully can feel that contrast. And even like the moment when she opens the secret door for the first time and the camera pulls back from her at the door. I remember when we first shot listed, this is actually, kind of one of those things where it's like you can plan and then you find something on the day where, we were setting up for the shot, and I told the dolly grip, I was like, okay, let's just, creep back, pull back slowly, and that's gonna be a thing. And Zach was like, no, let's do it faster. I'm like, all right, sure, faster. Go a little bit faster. And we go, okay, a little bit faster. He was like, no, like 3 times faster. And I'm like, really? Like you wanted to you wanted to be that fast? And he's like, yeah, that fast. All right, we'll do a take like that, sure. And we just like, really hit the gas on it, and that's definitely the take that's in the movie. And he was totally right. And that like turns the tables, right? That's where the audience has that moment, and where Georgina says nope, and
I love her.
It was awesome that it even speaks to it even more, that the fact that you're emulating 2 different, very distinct styles, and then, well, technically 3, because then I'll get a flashback in a second, but that feels like a whole other cinematic style in itself. But even with that, 3 completely different styles, but it still feels like the same signature on all 3 of them. That they mesh so well together. You could very much tell that there's something different at play, but somehow the aesthetic still remains the same.
It's a good dance. One of the things he mentioned earlier that I think a lot of people probably, if they haven't seen the film, need to understand is that the house itself is a character, and that's why it plays so well. Like you said, it wasn't character driven as far as the actual person, but the house itself revealing these plots and to seeing these things. And you guys were mentioning Georgina earlier, and I really love her. What was she in Black Mirror, if I'm not mistaken, season 4, if I'm not mistaken? Like, she really lends to it, and like you say, that same shot when the reveal, like when you see it, it's like it's symmetry. It's literally the cinematography, the score, the actress, the story, all being driven at that same time. And to me, that's what's beautiful about film, when you can get those moments like that.
Yeah. And that's all Zach, the director. That's like, you know, his vision. And I feel like he knew each and every one of those parts in advance, and then just got to see that through post, and just any question that anybody had, he would have an answer for it and know exactly why it's got to be that way. And it works. It works really well.
Pre-production, guys, have those pre-production meetings.
All right, for the next question, please be as speak to us as if we know everything about camera. I'll Google what I need to later. I just want the genuine, unfiltered, technical answer to this question, because I genuinely want to know for myself. Those shots, the flashback shots when it cuts to the origin story with Richard Brake as Frank, that wide claustrophobic feeling that is I don't know how it's achieved, because the bars are on the sides of the screen. They're going back to standard, so it's not wide, but it feels wider somehow. It felt like, as far as like film goes, it felt the closest that I've seen to how our natural eyes see. But I Googled this. Our eyes are only 17 millimeters. That's our like natural vision. And I also Googled this. That lens for that was 12 millimeters, correct?
It depends on the shot. We did some shots.
I'm specifically thinking about the grocery store.
Oh, the grocery store. Yeah. I think that was either 12 or 15 millimeter.
So are you just super like a super wide, but just up like right on the subject? Like, what goes into? I don't even know enough to ask the question properly. I'm just hoping you'll save me at some point here and jump in.
Well, the answer is yes. It's a very wide lens close to the subject. That's the trick. But I want to correct something though about the field of view and how eyes work and all that. And it's tricky because eyes don't work like a camera. And this 17 millimeter that you're referring to is specific to a specific format, and is probably just representing an angle of view. And you kind of feel like your angle of view is very wide. Like if I put my hands out here, I can just barely see them in my peripheral, right? But the way eyes work is you're really only perceiving the center of your vision at one time, and your brain is filling in a lot of the rest of it. So the actual angle of view is much tighter, especially in color. You have a concentration of cones in the middle of your retinas that give you a lot more color vision in the center of it, and that's why. Little trick if you're looking at stars and you want to see a star that you can't quite make out. If you look just off to the side of it, it might appear in your peripherals because it'll hit more of your rods, which are more light sensitive, but they're only in black and white. Anyway, so that's sort of the field of view question. Is there's not a number that you can really assign to like what you can actually see at one moment, because it's not analogous to the way a camera works. In addition to that, we have certain amount of control of the depth of field, or not control, but there is some shallowness to the depth of field and where the focus of your vision lies, right? And if I look at my hand here, I can make you guys out of focus, and I can rack focus to you in the background. And what is in focus is actually pretty narrow. And if you were to use a 17 millimeter lens on a 35 millimeter format, which is, I'm guessing, what you're referring to, most things would be in focus, right? And that's not realistic to what the human eye sees as well. So maybe more analogous would be a very long lens, because it's very focused on one thing and has a sort of narrow field of view. But maybe a better analogy for human vision would be larger format. So if you look at like an 8x10 negative, for example, like a big plate negative, 100 millimeter lens is a very wide lens. It still, captures a very wide field of view, but it has a very shallow depth of field. So there might, some people would argue that that's the closest to human vision that we can get, and that's why it's used in photography and portrait photography and landscapes and kind of popularized in that way. But using a camera to make something feel like your eye is just not realistic. So I think, yeah, go ahead. That's it.
And I was going to say, somewhere there's out there a kid who got a camera for Christmas last year who just told his mom, who just saw this interview, by the way, I think I want to paint again. I'm just going to paint. It's somebody's colors. You put them on there. That's it. There's no rack and focus with but no, I love that you said it. And as much as we know, we probably got like, what, 35% of that made sense to us?
But yeah, most of I got about, I'll say 70.
I was at 75. I was trying to make you feel better.
Oh,
okay. You all said we both
feel worse.
Oh, thank you. So
what didn't you get? I want to make it clear.
We got it. But again, for our film school audience out there, we want them to really know that, again, you didn't learn this overnight. It takes time to do this. When you get your camera, you learn depth of perception, field of view. You know what things work and don't work, and you have to try stuff to get results. And I think that's the most important thing.
What made you guys?
I have to give some credit to a course I took in college called Science of Cinematography, taught by Gordon Arkenberg, and he retaught that class during the pandemic on Zoom, and it was incredible. And to go back and relearn all that stuff, but there is so much science in cinematography and so much physics involved in image making, and it whether or not it informs the actual making of images is hard to say, but I find it really useful and nice to kind of know how it all works, from the light emitting from a source to being captured onto a recording medium to being displayed for an audience. I think that understanding every piece of that pipeline is critical to have control over it. So
yeah, I read how you guys did the that shot where it seamlessly transitions into the car.
Yeah.
That in that same flashback sequence, that was just all. It was just all done. Like, you had to actually specialize the rig that the camera is on to get it through the window to seamlessly, have that one steady shot from him walking out of the house. Like, with something like that, I don't know what the capabilities of the camera that you guys used is, but going from like extreme exposure outside to the inside of a car, like how do you work with something like that where it just the lighting and everything stays consistent as it's going inside the car?
That's an interesting question. I think nobody's asked me about the exposure on that shot yet, but I don't know if we did an exposure rack. Normally I would just rack exposure and just change the iris during the shot. But there were it was too clunky to be able to do that, or couldn't touch the camera because I was holding the gimbal, and it was a whole thing. So I feel like probably just let it live, because the car had big windows. We were exposed for the exterior, and it was he's silhouetted, so it's not like I needed detail on his face or anything inside the car. So I guess exposure wise, we probably just left it as it was.
I know what it was. Invisible hand. And the only reason I'm saying that, because you two motherfuckers are trying to make me feel like I'm not smart anymore. I heard you say it earlier, and you said earlier. I was waiting for the perfect time to say invisible hand. And this whole interview, now there have been 3 invisible hands. Thank you.
Yeah,
I appreciate it. Now, for an independent horror film with a budget of under $5 million, the location and set design was really, we have to say, impressive. I mean, It looked like every penny was spent well. So watching the house in the neighborhood transform, while now there were some shots on location in Detroit, the actual neighborhood was built from scratch on a Bulgarian farm. Is that correct?
Yes, that's true.
Yes. I want to be right.
Okay, continue.
Okay, well, I mean, I didn't know. I thought it was going to be like, oh yeah, the Bulgarian farm, but now I'll continue. 1357. Now, is it true that the only digital effect shot in the movie is the grass that was used in the flashback sequence? Is that correct?
No, that's not true.
I knew it. I knew it.
That we said the IMDb is like 7 for 10.
Yeah, but
So
I know Zach really harked on that because it was the most complicated visual effects thing to do, because making the texture of the grass was very hard to do right, and we saw maybe 4 or 5 iterations of that, and we looked at it in the color grade, and we're like, it just doesn't look like grass; it looks like smudges on it. So,
is that somebody mowing the grass at one part of the flashback when he comes back to the house?
I think there's like a guy in the background that's mowing the grass, and all the grass it was sod that was laid over the other grass, because the other grass was just like destroyed from us shooting on it for so many days and being overgrown, because we wanted it to look, overgrown. But and then I think they had to like spray paint it because I think there was a timing thing, like the sod got laid and then it was a few days until we got to shoot, and since it didn't take root and there was nobody watering it, it turned brown, so they were like trying to spray it green. It didn't look good. So yeah, I think that specifically was very complicated, but it's not the only visual effects shot in the movie. There are a handful of, as there always are, little visual effects like paint outs and fixes and things like that. And but the biggest thing was the fall from the silo, but only the fall from the silo. And I think it's important to recognize that the stuff on top of the silo was done practically we rebuilt the top of the silo on a stage. And instead of having a green screen around it, we used black fabric with holes poked in it and lit from behind to make the distant city lights at the horizon level. So all of that is done in camera. There's no computer doctoring for any of that. Only for falling off the side of the silo, we did that on green screen.
Yeah, I thought that was so interesting in one of the interviews with you that I read, where you were talking about that horizon and shifting it to always keep it level with the camera. Like that's something like that takes so much, like, to think about that before the fact and not after the fact in post-production. That's the science of cinematography. Take the class, man. Well, speaking of science, this was another thing that I was wondering about the science of that cut from Frank watching the woman at the grocery store to watching her at her home. It's very similar blocking. Was there like on-set calculations happening to achieve that, or was that like just getting it as close as possible and fixing it in post?
Yeah, there was no fixing in post for that. That was just getting it as close as possible, and the calculations were just measuring the camera position. Luckily, we shot both of those shots on the same day, one in the morning, one in the afternoon. But they were very different rigs. It wasn't like we could keep the camera in the same place and move the car. We did have to de-rig and set up something different. But we took very careful measurements of where the lens was in relation to the window, how far away it was from him and the other window, and then looking at frames of it from before. We took photos of the monitor and lined it up so like the crosshairs are in exactly the same spot, and like the left right edges of the frame were in exactly the same place for the starting position. So then I remember as we were framing it up, because to execute that move was actually kind of complicated. It's on a slider on a dolly, so it's slide back out of the window as we start dollying over, and then slide and boom up and look down, and there's reflections in the window we had to deal with. We put up a whole lot of black fabric behind the camera to kill those reflections. It was, and I think that was near the end of the shoot. I feel like that was one of our last days, if not, it was close to the end.
I loved it. I liked it because it wasn't, aside from being just a really cool cut, those two shots, I think it conveyed really well that feeling of like when you have a problem, when you're like say like you're an alcoholic. I like cigarettes a lot, even though I shouldn't smoke them. And a lot of the times it's what it feels like I'll go to bed with the guilty feelings. I'm not going to smoke tomorrow. But then it's like, before I know it, how did I end up at the convenience store to get another pack of cigarettes? And it struck me in that way, where it's like, this is this problem that he has. And it's almost like a subconscious thing that's happening outside of his don't even consider it a choice. He saw her at the grocery store. Now he's at her house. There was a stylistic cut, but it seemed to play into the character development too, which I love when everything is working to serve the story.
Yeah. Wow. I'm so glad you said that. That's one of those moments where I should say that was intentional, but I can't. And I'm really glad that it hit you that way. I like that interpretation of it. It's cool.
You've come a long way from someone in the audience saying, no, I can't watch this. See, he's breaking down everything you do now. You've come a long way from that.
Another thing I was kind of curious about was that point of view shot from Justin Long's character, which I think I read somewhere that was another kind of subtle point of contention between you and Zach, as far as like doing the POV stuff in a horror film. But it was used sparingly, and I think it was used well. But right after he sees the breastfeeding video and he holds the knife out, it was just it looked like, there's point of view shots that I've seen in horror movies, and this felt more like I was playing a video game. Like, you could see both of his hands on the flashlight and the thing. And I'm thinking like, all right, this is low. This isn't like Marvel budget. So they would have probably just put the hands in and post or whatever. So I was wondering how you guys accomplished that. If there was like a stunt double for Justin Long's other arm, or if the rig was like slightly over.
Before
his
you
shoulder.
answer this, can you please tell me, was it a body rig? Please tell me it was a body rig.
No,
Was it like
not a body rig.
Damn it! I read.
Sorry.
I thought it was a body rig. Damn.
Yeah, well,
Are we
that's good.
both?
Good. Well, first I should say, just to clarify, the point of contention between me and Zach about POVs is more about like looking at a room when a character walks into it, or like moving down the hall. And I think that, you know, he was probably right about it. I think there's something really nice about like looking down the hall and seeing what's coming. But for me, the horror comes from what you don't see, and for him, it comes from what you're about to see. And I think that was sort of an interesting difference between us. But with this shot, it was not a contentious thing at all. It was a fun, like, let's do this thing. And it was supposed to be a body rig. That was the plan. And we were going to do, so a lot of the influence for the Frank sequence was a movie called Angst, which is an Austrian film from the late 80s. And it's, have you seen it?
I read up on it when I was getting ready for this interview.
Oh,
So
okay.
that's why I asked about the body rig, like the shots and the frame,
Yeah,
like this and that. So there you go. I did my research, man.
Yeah, there you go. So you know, that was a huge influence for the Frank sequence, and we wanted to kind of call back or ahead. I forget which happens first, to be honest, but I think it's call ahead to the Frank sequence visually, and say like, hey, this is gonna become part of the style. And we wanted to do things that either were body rig or felt like body rigs with the stuff, especially, you know, close to him in the grocery store. Like that could have been a snorri cam. And we saw a lot of that in Angst, but we also saw a lot of just like wide angle, close following stuff and floating around like that. So that was the influence for that. And we were going to do even more of that kind of stuff with Justin in the tunnels, especially once he gets the gun. And there was this really cool rig I saw on Instagram that I really wanted to use. We didn't end up doing because we just didn't have time or money, you know, to figure it out. But it's like a snorri cam that has the camera on like a pivot attached to like to a prop. They were using a gun, but I guess it could be anything. And the guy in the video, he was like swinging the gun around so that the camera would turn into the POV of the gun, and then like pull the gun back around closer to him to like do this, and the camera would then swing around and be attached to him, moving around like that. And I was like, that's so incredible. We got to do something like that. And I think our camera was a little too big, and it wasn't something we had access to in Bulgaria. And I was like, we could make it, but I just didn't have time to make it. Anyway,
give me some PVC pipes.
yeah. And actually on Eyes of My Mother, we used PVC pipe to do a snorri cam rig for one shot in that. So I was like, I could make this, you know, it seems like something that'd be fun to do, just no time to do it. So anyway, we didn't end up making that, but we still wanted to do this kind of direct POV thing where you see his hands. And it was as simple as I just put the camera on his shoulder and kind of held it on his shoulder while he had his arms out. So that was it.
Well, it looked great.
Yeah.
So in your face, like rig makers, we don't need you anymore. Like,
yeah.
I want one. Yeah. Okay. All right. A lot of the film takes place in very low light situations. And of course, if anybody will tell you, that's one of the first things I think they talk about in film school is, I mean, I have this when I try to teach people film, or at least when they're starting out, when they ask what kind of camera should they get, I say, well, think about this. I look at my whole body as the camera, and the eyes are my lens and things of that nature, and try to make it work that way. Now, I read that you actually instructed the actors on how to light the scenes. We talked about this earlier, practically with whatever device the character was using in order to avoid unnatural looking backlighting, which is horrible. It makes films look so damn cheesy. What are the biggest challenges to shooting in conditions like that, and how do you normally know that you would be able to work around them?
I mean, I selected the camera and lenses knowing that I would have to do that. So the Venice I had not used before, but I'd heard great things about, and with the ability to shoot at 2500 ISO without really any noise, I was like, that seems great. And then I tested it and sent it to the colorist, and he was like, you go to 5000 ISO. I'm like, great, I can do that. But he was like, don't go to 10,000 ISO. That would
Jesus Christ.
So 5000 ISO and lenses that open to a 1.5. I was like, all right, that seems like, you know, it'll do it. And then iPhone lights are pretty bright, and we got this for the flashlight prop. Wanted to have control over it and be able to kind of dim it as needed and make it flicker when we wanted to. So the gaffer suggested a a little LED. It was called a coin. Was it Ape Labs makes a coin light, and it's got a little remote control, and we were able to build that into the prop flashlight, and then we could dial in the color, and I could remotely turn it on and off, or the gaffer could turn it on and off.
Nice.
Amazing.
So that was pretty sweet to kind of be able to have control over that. But then a lot of the rest of it was, like you said, directing the actors or working with them. And the AD was really good at this, actually. He was better than I was at helping the actors figure out how to hold the flashlights. He would always do this thing where he'd be like, okay, just hold it like this, like, kind of near the back of your head, like looking like this. And it was perfect because it would hit the side of their face and then bounce off the wall and do this thing. But it was hard for them to understand that and figure it out, but they did, and it worked. And then the other part of it is the gaffer had made another LED thing. He had I also don't know the name of the light, but it was like a circular LED light that he had built a little like a top hat kind of snoot on, and then he had a little like lid on it, and he would stand behind me with the camera. He would stand right behind me, and wherever the actors were pointing the flashlight, he would just match that hitting the wall with his little LED. So he would kind of track their movement, and that would just amplify the bounce coming back at them. But it had to be shaped so we didn't see the direct light or camera shadow or anything like that. And then he had the lid, so when they turn around and point the flashlight in the other direction on their back, there was no light. So he would close that up, and it would fall to silhouette, and we would just see the light kind of spilling down the tunnel. So I thought that was ingenious. I can't take much credit for any of it, but
I think that's amazing. Did I hear you say it was some of these things were lit with would you say an iPhone?
Yeah.
So that's what they mean by that commercial when they say made with an iPhone. They just meant the lighting. I knew they weren't talking about that other shit.
Oh, no, those cameras are
Man, stop! Don't you fall for that, man. You've been on board with me for a while. Stop it.
All right. Well,
Thank
going back to what you're saying about like the point of view shots, or where you're seeing like what's down the hall or what's in the room. You guys did such a good job with the best comparison I could make is like watching 80s horror films and then watching the same horror film digitally remastered, and for some reason it doesn't feel as scary. And I had watched this documentary about like the advantages of VHS back in the day, like watching stuff on VHS. Was that like once we got like DVD and Blu-ray, then now we could see what was in those corners, and we could see what was like in the graininess that we couldn't see before. And somehow you guys achieved that same like feeling of I don't feel like I'm being cheated. I don't feel like this isn't lit well enough. It's lit intentionally, but it's in such a way that I'm staring at something and I can't make out what's in the shadows. And you don't see that a lot in like when you said in one of the interviews that you avoided backlighting and use it and like lighting the surroundings around them unnaturally. I think that played so well into the shots under the house, making them that was where the suspense came from for me, was not being able to really make out what was coming until it was too late. You got jump scares, like usually I scoff at jump scares, but the jump scares in that were earned because it's literally coming out of nowhere.
Did you jump at all?
I jumped twice.
Okay, I just want to see. I want to see what the
well,
jump count
I mean,
was.
you have to be a heartless, cold-blooded, humanless
that's why I
person
asked if you jumped.
when Skarsgård is getting headbanged. Like,
Yeah, I'll jump for that. I'll
and that was like kudos to the director on that, because that was such fantastic casting on having Skarsgård play that
Pennywise, baby.
because you expect him like, oh,
Right.
this guy, he always plays the baddie,
And then he gets fucked up. You're like, wait a minute. So I've been wrong for an hour?
Yeah. You are responsible for abolishing the church. Thank you, by the way. I read in an article in IndieWire that you suggested using the the existence silo that was on location for one of the final scenes in the film, and initially it was intended to take place on the roof of the church. And we kind of touched on this a few times in the interview, but if you could speak on it for that specific scenario, how that played out, and what it was like working with a writer and director who was open to things like that, like down to shifting the location of the film's climax.
Yeah, I mean, it was great, but I didn't know that going into it. I had a feeling, but we got there. Well, first of all, we kind of started prep a little bit behind schedule, and Zach has talked about the kind of financing snafu that happened and all that. But as a result, they had to start building the set before we got there, which was pretty scary because, we didn't know if the houses were going to land in the right place. And there were so many houses to build, and we didn't know which one was going to be the hero house and how we were going to kind of build the neighborhood around that. So when we got there, very first day in Bulgaria, we go to see the farm set and see how it's coming along. And we're kind of standing there and trying to piece together how, where's Frank's house going to be? Where are the other houses going to be? How are we going to have the car drive up? Where are the cops going to drive away from? All that. And part of that is, where's the church going to go? And we're sitting there looking down the street, and it's like, okay, well, it seems like down at the end of the block that way should be the church, right where that silo is. And I was like, yeah, we probably got to block that silo. Okay, interesting. And then I kind of had a moment, and there's stairs kind of leading up to silo, and I was like, should I say it? Okay, I guess. What if we did the church at the silo? And there was this pause, and I was like, oh my God, I said the wrong thing. I'm fired. This is the worst.
This guy didn't even show up to the interview on time. Now he's trying to change the ending of the movie.
Exactly. And I was really lucky that Zach was receptive to that, and he was just like, no, that's great. It's a silo. Let's do it. And he just kind of ran with it. And then I literally ran up the silo to test it out and see if was going to collapse or something. It was all rusty metal, and it's actually an oil tank, so you could actually look inside of it, but you don't want to stick your head too deep in it because it's just full of oil fumes. It was empty, but residual oil fumes in there. And the stairs along the side were pretty rickety, and they ended up hiring an engineering team to weld some extra supports on it to make it safer for the actors, but they still decided we couldn't have the actors on top of the silo. That wasn't going to be allowed. So that's why we had to rebuild the top of it on a stage. And then we did one shot with a stunt double on top of it. It's the drone shot that kind of comes over the top there and sees the bodies down below.
Nice.
But
it'd be so funny if he came back months later. Is yeah, so Jordan Peele finally saw the hey, wish it would have ended on a church.
Yeah, it's so funny. I was going to ask this before we move on.
I'm sorry, but yeah, kudos on the silo, because that was a horror film ending in a church could have borderline cliche, especially with Candyman just coming out previously.
About that. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, there were a lot of problems to solve too, because it was it can't just in part of it was in the church. There was inside the church, the homeless man had his his hideout, so we had to figure out, well, is it going to be then inside the silo? And we scouted a bunch of locations to try to make it look like the inside of it, a curved space. And they're like, no, I guess it could just be next to it. So we kind of used that building next to it as the exterior, and then cheated the interior elsewhere, and the geography of that all had to make sense. So it still had to be worked out. It wasn't it's a perfect substitute, but yeah, it meant some rewrites, which I was grateful that Zach was interested in doing.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I was going to say, before we move on, other than cast and crew taking the break to stick their head deep in the little thing to get the oil valve fumes, hey man, I'm taking a quick break. Other than that, what's your favorite memory from the actual production itself, whether it was on camera, behind camera, maybe someone you met, something you taught, something you learned? What's your favorite memory one of the favorite memories from your production, from that memories?
It was so much fun. I don't know.
Tell us, man. Is there a story that you can or can't or maybe shouldn't tell us without mentioning any names? I mean, just go for it, man.
Man, I don't know.
Damn it!
I just see smashing Bill's head in the wall was pretty great. Doing the prosthetics were just so incredible, and that was pretty early on, and I think that was the first day we saw the mother prosthetics, and there was a lot of dread about that because we were recommended these Bulgarian guys who do the prosthetics. Their English was not great. They were both named Lucy, and we were like, what's going on? And we visited their studio, and we were really impressed with their other work, but the film hinges on like the prosthetics looking good, and it's like, how are we gonna, like, what if we show up and it just like isn't there? And they never showed us a test beforehand. And I know Zach was like, having so much anxiety about this because the movie really it matters, like whether the prosthetics look good. So so it's like in our first week, and we get go to the into the tunnel, and we're getting ready to kill Bill's character, and I remember seeing Matt, who played the mother, walk onto set for the first time, and that was just pretty awesome because it really, like, I don't know, it looked so real, and it was just like right there, and yeah,
It's
pretty
when relief
incredible.
meets excitement at the same time. Relief, excitement, yeah, all right.
Yeah, exactly. And everybody wanted to take pictures with him, and I got some great photos of that with like the Bill's head smashed into the wall, and it was a good time. And then another actually kind of gory moment that was fun was, and a lot of stuff was fun with Justin. He just had a great time on set, made a really good vibe on set. It was so much fun to work with. He was constantly like trying to learn Bulgarian phrases between takes. But there's the moment that got cut out of the film, and I know Zach has talked about this, but it's when the mother takes a rat from the side of the room and bites its head off, and then like regurgitates it into Justin's mouth, and that whole thing. So I had a blast shooting that. That was really fun.
Yeah, I can imagine. I had a feeling that even the baby feeding scene to Justin Long, I feel like there had to be some chuckles behind camera on that one. And that I grabbed a still of the moment that Skarsgård, the bashing scene. I grabbed a still from that, so I had to just arrow key frame by frame through that to find the perfect moment. And usually, like not special effects, but just moments like that, horrific moments like that, where prosthetics or effects are in use, when you slow it down or lighten it up or frame by frame it, the horror dissipates. But it was the opposite with that moment. Frame by frame was don't frame by frame that moment. It is even more horrific. Every little, like, at one point I saw an eyeball, another point I saw a mouth, like just the like awestruck horror of somebody's mouth, and then it was more terrifying, slowed down, sped up, and lightened up. So true, kudos.
Actually,
he hasn't slept since.
And that was literally, I'm guessing that was something that was just, that there was no Bill in there. That was just a mold of him that mother could slam against the wall as hard as she wanted to.
Yeah, so we did it with there were multiple phases of the prosthetic, and then also we used real Bill to hit like a soft pad in the wall for the first one. So I was there with the camera pretty close to him, and we were trying to match the movement of the head into the wall and do it pretty frantically and repeatedly so that we could hide cuts in there. So so we did it with Bill's head going into like a soft pad just to start. And then there were 3 other levels of his head getting smashed, and we did the same movement with all 3 versions of it and hiding the cuts.
What was the camera protection like on that? Just to make, because I'm pretty sure he's gotten blood on 2 cameras now? 3? Yeah. So what was the camera protection like on that? Like to make sure nothing. Look at that, kid. See, film school.
There you go. Yeah, I had like a poncho on, like a plastic poncho that you saw in that photo. So.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for talking to us about Barbarian. We have like 2 more questions for you. But before we move on from that, just want to let people know that Barbarian is now available to stream in most places, from Prime to HBO Max and Vudu or Fandango. Just Google it and check it out. All right. How'd you guys like that?
We loved it.
Yeah, I bet you did.
It was everything for me, man.
Oh, courier over here.
What does that mean?
Huh?
What does that mean?
I don't know. Where you been?
Had to get some chicken in me.
Well, while you guys were watching that, 2 guests showed up here. I'm going to bring them on the screen right now. Shabuya, roll call. All right. What up? That is Greg and Justin. Justin took Greg to see Barbarian, and when we asked Greg to be on our friend's favorite films, he asked if he could bring Justin, and he wanted to talk about Barbarian. That was terrible. You do it better.
Well, that's what the ladies say, but don't tell them.
Yeah.
With that being said, here, guys, guess who we have in the house today? Here we have fans of the friends of the franchise Barbarian. Here, these are just guys, man, and they're friends of the show. They're here. They're in what's it called, Duval. They're in Duval, and they're going to discuss Barbarian with us tonight. And you know what we really love about doing this show? You know, we're professionals. We make films, but sometimes I like to hear from people who just really love film. You know, that's where we started, right?
Yeah.
No, that was much better than what you did.
It was.
Yeah.
I'm gonna bring our brightness up.
Who?
Ours.
I'm too dark?
Uh,
What?
No, we both are.
Nah, fucker. That's not what I heard.
Let us know in the chat how the audio is sounding. It always gets a little funky when we add a third mic to the mix. So if you can't hear anybody well enough, say something and we'll turn it up.
Oh, your mom's. I'm gonna stop cursing as much.
Yeah, let's check the chat real quick before we get into it.
Let me know when you leave, Terry.
Angela said, I want to go back and research the movie after his interview and appreciate different shots even more. You should.
So you're never mind.
James MCD says, same. I already thought the cinematography was amazing, but this makes me appreciate it even more.
James, did you see he was trying to take your due? He was walking the James due a little bit.
My mommy says, hey kid, G and I were having dinner and he was like, David is on at 7:30. Well, thank you, G.
You do realize David and Tarian are on at 7:30. I don't think they know I'm here. Maybe it is too dark.
She had to hurry up her dinner. Dope interview, Mathis. Thank you. And before we forget, while we're on Mathis, real quick before we get into things.
What do they have for dinner?
Mom, let Greg is interested to know what you have for dinner, so please let him know.
We want to make sure that nutritional content is right where it needed to be.
And here you go, Mathis.
Yo no comprende mucho gusto.
You do that.
No, it's positive reinforcement.
The crazy part about it, Mathis is so crazy. I don't know if he means it was a dope interview or he wants to see us do an interview about dope.
Yeah.
You never know with him.
So
Maybe a little both.
Maybe. I like it.
So we will we're going to get into Barbarian in just a few minutes, but before we get into that, let's get into Greg and Justin. Penetrate their minds. So you guys have a little bit of frame of reference for who you're listening to this evening. Hold on, we might have an answer on that dinner. No, Mathis is back. Rick, thanks. That's.
I don't even know what it's for.
Is Tarantino here?
No, and the crazy part about it, that's across the street.
Oh wow!
Yeah, like not my uncle's house. Like
if you can hear that,
they can't. They can't.
Well, if you can,
they can't.
It's Friday.
On the north side, James MCD says my screening of Avatar is starting. Have a great show, lad. We'll see you on Tuesday about Avatar, Mr. MCD.
You mean Blues Day?
Yes.
Thank you. I got them on fire.
All right, Greg. My mom is having sorbellos, tortellini, alla penne. Is that
sounds delicious?
I don't know what that sounds.
With a hint of mustard sauce. It just should sound like it should have that.
Expensive is what it sounds like. It sounds kind of pricey.
$4.95 at Ralphie's.
Scalapini.
All right, so what I'm gonna make you guys big here real quick because I'm gonna ask you a question and then I'm gonna go brighten up our camera, keep this thing nice and smooth. Bring that down a little bit. There we go. That's looking better. All right. So and you can answer. Whoever wants to answer can answer. What's the first film that you remember really having an impact on you? And
Definitely The Shining. My mom was like pretty strict growing up, and we weren't allowed to watch too many like horror movies and stuff. But she was like, "This is a good one. You gotta see this one." And I was like, "Oh," and I was just blown away. Like,
so she didn't want you watching bad horror films. That's what it sounded like.
right. Yeah.
Well, we grew up in a pretty strict house, and she would like read our lyrics to CDs and stuff like that. Like,
yeah. I can relate.
I bought a Tool CD, and she was like, "No,
Yeah.
no,
Oh.
the F word in there."
My
some
mom's
F-bombs.
listening right now. She threw out Beck Odelay because
I was
two
allowed to keep
turntables
Odelay.
and a microphone was too sexually explicit.
That was the one?
What?
Yeah.
I would think Devil's Haircut.
Meanwhile, I'm listening to Trent Reznor talking about I want to fuck you like an animal.
Right.
Why are you pointing at me?
From the
Yeah.
insides.
Why are you pointing at me? You literally just did your thumb like that. I'm not Trent Reznor, number one.
I wasn't allowed to watch The Simpsons, but
Right.
when I had Odelay, she let me keep that one. I guess the the two turntables and microphone
They-
slid under the table.
They didn't want you watching The Simpsons because the pedophile next door. Ned
Well,
Flanders.
no, it's
Ned
'cause
Flanders.
It portrayed a
Ned-
dysfunctional
Ned
family.
Flanders, yeah.
Nedley?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. See, there you go.
So
Yeah.
The Shining. What is what do you how do you feel about The Shining now with like everything that's come to light about Stanley Kubrick, like the way Shelley Duvall was treated and things
yeah.
like that? Like it seems like the tables are turning where at one point directors like that were admired and put on a pedestal because they like how much can you make people suffer for the art?
Right.
And there's like, but now that's kind of turning where people are like, hold on, you don't have to do that.
Yeah, I feel like he could have toned that down a little bit from what I've heard. How he was just yelling at her, and it was all to evoke that performance of just frantic, hysteria. I think, but
It was an amazing
She-
performance.
She was great.
really good. Yeah, would it have been as good without it? We don't really know, but
Yeah.
she's a good actress or actor, whatever. So I don't know. It's kind of
It doesn't really have an effect on, like, I think there wasn't a time and place for it, but what happened, and we have The Shining because of it. So it's like,
Shining a light on what really happened.
there you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
It's an amazing.
I'm here all week, man. I'm here all week.
So that was the first movie that you really thought like that. And what kind of impact did it have?
I think it really got me into horror. I was always already into like ghost stories and all of that stuff. And,
Did it give you nightmares?
I don't think so.
Okay.
No, not.
I was so hoping he said yes, and he was like, I didn't really want to talk about this, but now that you brought it up.
Justin, what about you?
My earliest, there's a couple. It's kind of they kind of bleed together, but definitely the Last Crusade, Indiana Jones, Last Crusade, and part of that is so vivid because of the horrific ending, like how these guys perish at the end, like the big bad, what happens to him, and that was like one of the first uses of computer animation with the face, which I thought, even decades after having seen the movie originally, I thought was like prosthetics and makeup and stuff and time lapse, but it was ILM pioneering the CGI stuff, which I thought was just so cool. And the way they did it, you could tell they're really trying to replicate that nasty, visceral head exploding that they got in Raiders and the heart ripping out in Doom. Yeah, I don't remember if I saw it in the theater necessarily, but I remember that scene forever. And then
What's scary to me about that is that they're doing another Indiana Jones. He's like 89.
oh yeah,
That's scary. That's scaring me as an adult. Go ahead, please.
Indiana Jones and the Forgotten Memories.
Yes, goodness gracious.
yeah.
Oh,
Fucking turned into Sean Connery right in front of our face. Like, just Indy.
sorry, my mom says that's an amazing restaurant. She said she was chiming in one of my comments before. Like, I have to make the correction. She says, yeah, I was so strict. Also, David's grandmother used to let him watch Freddy Krueger at 4 years old. That's true. And I'll give my mom credit. She was totally lax when it came to the films that I watched, but really, really strict when it came to the music I listened to. Like, I was watching Pumpkinhead, like when I was this tall. She didn't really care about the movies for some reason.
That had scores that went to them, that had music in them.
Yeah. What is,
Time to die!
what is the worst film that you ever saw?
I gotta think about that.
I don't need to think about it. I know right away.
Going back to the first question really quick, I think before The Shining, when I saw The Goonies, I watched that movie like every weekend, like nonstop. That was like my jam, and that really got me into liking movies a lot. I think.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I don't know. And now my kid is super into it, and we have like a book, like a Goonies book that she wants to read like every night.
That's
And
you could tell that movie's had an impact on a lot of people
Oh,
that are
yeah.
like grown up and making movies now because it's all that flavor of life.
Well, like Stranger Things, any of these new things, they're all kind of emulating that like group of friends going on an adventure, like
yeah.
but,
Coming of age and kind of
right.
mixing in.
Yeah, if they only knew, like they couldn't possibly, and somebody growing up now could not possibly have that experience unless the only way they can do it is to take the plot back to the 80s, because now with cell phones and helicopter parenting, and you really you can't let. Like we watch these now, like, oh my god, where the hell are these kids' parents?
Right.
I mean, they're just out. They're just out.
Not just out and about, but like potentially dying.
What do you want, Lawrence? Like he just comes down to the police station every day.
Yeah. With the worst movie, I want to clarify, this is like there are some terrible movies that are awesome because of how terrible they are. I'm thinking of like if there's a movie that comes to mind that just completely missed the mark, like Edison.
That was really bad. That was really, really horrible. I told you mine is what's the worst that can happen with Danny DeVito and Martin Lawrence. It literally was the worst shit that could have happened.
I remember when that movie came out, there was a blurb or something from one of the critics, and it was.
You heard what he said? I remember when it came out, it was a blurb from one of the. He can't even put his fingers on it. That's how bad it was. Nobody even can find this shit. They've erased it from the web.
I remember that it was what's the worst that could happen, and the critic said a movie that answers its own title or something.
There
like
you
that.
go.
I always remember that.
Yeah.
It was so brutal.
I worked at
Good
Hollywood
grief.
Video when that movie came out, and there was a lot of people returning it not very happy.
I mean, you hear Danny DeVito, Martin Lawrence. What can go wrong? Everything. Some people are just not. Certain forces aren't meant to.
That's what's such a letdown about it. Is like the cast on the top billing above the title sells it, and then you're like, how do you fuck up this so bad? Martin Lawrence and Danny DeVito are probably like.
If anybody, you know what I thought would have been fucked up? Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito. I'm like, this never worked, but it did. Twins.
Yeah.
So you never know, man. Just throwing shit at the wall
They're returning
with triplets, and I hate that shit.
making-
I mean, Tracy Morgan's cool. He's just not my cup of tea, man. He's all right.
About that? Tracy Morgan's gonna be the
Come on,
third
man.
triplet?
Oh my god.
Nah, can we get Jason
Who's
Bateman or
that?
somebody? No,
Tracy
man, I'm
Morgan.
good.
I remember.
No, I'm good.
No. Yeah. No, Tracy Morgan. I'm sorry.
It's a chocolate milkshake, nah. Man, fuck out of hear that shit, man.
Do you have any ideas as far? I mean, it's okay.
Do we have to finish the whole movie or no?
No.
Okay, so for me it would be music by the movie that Sia made. One of the worst things I've ever seen.
That was-
There
that
were
was the one
parts
I've
of
never
it-
heard of it.
The autistic girl, right?
Right. But
Yeah.
it was played by the I can't remember her name. Like the
girl that's in all of her music videos. Isn't it?
right, the dancing the dance moms.
Elastic Heart is a badass music video.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah,
But
and a
I
lot of those
heard
music
that-
videos are good. And there's parts in music like the musical scenes that are kind of really choreographed, like dream sequences that are cool. But just the start of the movie is so awful. It's like an autistic girl and her mom is dead in the kitchen, and it's just it just gets worse from there. I don't know how it gets worse from there, but
They managed to.
yeah, it just is.
I didn't even hear about this.
What was the runtime? No. What time did you run out of there? That's what I'm
Right,
asking.
yeah.
The runtime. Yes.
It was like 30
Time to get
minutes.
out.
We were just like laughing. And we were gonna watch it ironically for fun, but we were just like.
I walked out of
Yeah.
Cloverfield. Remember I told you that? And what's the worst? I ran out of
I
Cloverfield.
love Cloverfield.
Oh,
no.
This is a point of contention for us.
That's funny.
Nah.
And when we saw Cloverfield in theaters, I remember we were like, that was great. And then we were in the hallway, and this kid was like, that was the worst movie alive.
Yes.
Well, you know what? I think that's the best way to describe it. Yes.
Is that right?
That sounds like a great movie. Like Midsummer,
Come full circle.
Hereditary. Like when you
No.
had half the people walking out hating it and half the people walking out loving it.
Yeah, it was
think that's like-
divisive.
you did a really good thing.
It was.
I walked out
divisive.
with a
It
fucking
got
headache.
people
That
talking.
fucking camera was shaking the whole time and shit, man. Never mind. Don't get me started.
Now the Cloverfield Lane wasn't so great. It was all right.
I didn't see that.
I
one.
couldn't get through that.
I remember
My rule
Cloverfield.
with the movie is if I can turn it off 20 minutes in and I don't care about what happens, then you fail to make me care about what happens.
Oh, like that recent Mortal Kombat that came out. I
Uh,
can turn it off 2 minutes into that.
Oh, yeah?
That was horrible, man. It was God, devil, atheist, all of them.
So
Oh,
is
okay.
horror you guys' preferred genre? Is that like
I think definitely horror and like comedy kind of like tied for me. And then, but I don't know because I really like all kinds of movies. Like I really like David Lynch and like
Yeah.
Wes Anderson movies, Richard
Yeah.
Linklater.
so
Sure.
you lean towards the indie obscure lane, and that whatever umbrella falls under that umbrella, multiple genres. It seems like.
Yeah, kind of.
I don't think you're
I'm right
respecting the
there.
space that we have in between us. Here's that you're right here with your hand movements. Then you were pointing at me earlier. Do I need to put a little board up here?
Oh,
What
What's
was
happening?
the worst film?
Oh, worst movie. Yeah, and I did. Like I said, I didn't even have to think long to come to this conclusion, but it was House of the Dead with the,
Oh, yeah.
there was a U-Bowl masterpiece. But that was just so awful. I don't know. It was
Based on the shoot 'em up arcade.
I'd
game.
rather watch a kid play the game, for an hour and a half. Just watch that. It would be more compelling narrative, more drama.
Missed
just to watch a kid
opportunity.
playing the
They
game.
should have had laser guns in the theater. You
Yes.
could aim at the screen.
Yes,
So that's a whole other.
that would have been cool.
Back then, it would have been okay. This was before.
I don't think that's going to fly nowadays.
No, yeah,
Shoot them up, kids, in the theater.
Still to do that now.
Well,
Yeah,
I had the next question here is why Barbarian is the film that you chose to talk about today, but I want to skip that because I feel like that's going to give away a lot of the things that we'll get into in the conversation. So instead of that question, there is something scrolling at the bottom of the screen right now that says this episode is dedicated to the Lackey family. And if you go to thattinyurl.com/LackeyFund, LACKEYFUND, it'll take you to a GoFundMe page. This episode is don't like if you plan on giving to Patreon or doing something on YouTube or GoFundMe or any of the things that we usually throw up. Instead, on this episode, go to that GoFundMe and help out a family that could really use all the holiday spirit thrown at them that you could possibly throw. And if there's anything that you want to elaborate on that or not, please feel free to do so, sir.
Yeah. First, just thank you so much for doing that, man. But yeah, I've been good friends with the Lackeys for many years now, and without getting into the specifics, they're just going through a really, really tough loss from earlier this week. Just really tragic loss of their dad, and it's in the news if you want to look it up. But there's details about it, but I don't really want to get into it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for.
Yeah, just know there's been an extreme tragedy. A family has suffered a terrible loss that is unimaginable, the details, and at the worst possible time of the year. So if you can and are able and feel moved at all, the link will be scrolling during the entirety of the episode, and you can go there and help make somebody's holiday just a fraction better at this ridiculously terrible time. Okay, we are going to, there's no easy way to segue from that into what we're about to get into, so it's just gonna rip the Band-Aid off. Barbarian.
Airbnb.
You mother.
Yeah, there you go.
See, this is why we don't talk about stuff beforehand.
Why is that, David?
Because, well, first of all,
Why are you cursing like that?
Greg messaged
I've been asking Durden about what he thought about the movie for weeks now.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think? Oh, yeah, we can talk about
and I told him our rule, like we don't talk about stuff before the cameras roll. I broke that rule. I said, don't let me forget.
I didn't.
When on Tuesday night or whatever, I called him when we had to reschedule. I said, don't let me forget Airbnb. It all takes place in an Airbnb, and you can only spell Barbarian with the letters from Airbnb.
Yes.
So yeah,
I didn't let you forget.
Thank you for not. Yeah, I appreciate that.
If you need me for anything, guys, let me know. I'm the brains of the show.
Well, just because you did that, I have something for you. I was just gonna say everything you need to know about Barbarian, but before we get into it,
Did you know what Durden?
What's wrong with you?
For tonight, right out of that chair, I'm gonna push you over if you keep playing that intro. I hate that intro with my entire body.
as we said, Barbarian is written and directed by one of the whitest kids you know, Zach Kuperstein. The first film he directed was 2019's gross out comedy Miss March, alongside his whitest kids you know co-creator, rest in peace to Trevor Moore. 13 years later, Zach returns to feature film directing with an intense horror film, Barbarian. Barbarian's premise is kept intentionally vague, reading: a woman staying at an Airbnb discovers that the house that she has rented is not what it seems. And kudos to the cast and director, Nancy Nayer. This film was perfectly cast. You have Georgina Campbell is the final girl, Tess. And
From
then-
Black Mirror.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Bill Skarsgård plays Keith, and that's where I'm talking about the perfect casting.
Pennywise.
So
'Cause that guy is always the bad guy.
right, such a
And-
good casting choice because
just-
you think going in like this is the guy.
He's
Look at this
it's
guy.
like a poster boy for sexual assault.
Yeah.
Like if you walk into a police station, now have you seen this guy?
Yeah.
And when
face.
she walked into the house, you're like, no,
And
go
you
in
got,
there.
Justin Long is AJ.
My boy.
Fun fact: Zach Kreger originally offered this role to Zach Efron. He turned it down, which makes me wonder what is Zach Efron going on that he doesn't want us to know about. That he'd steer clear of a role like that. Don't go digging.
Heavy acting.
Ooh.
Yeah, this is strictly speculation based solely on the fact that he turned that role down. But don't go digging. Matthew Patrick
Oh,
Harris.
Ginger.
Matthew Patrick Davis turns in an unforgiven performance as the mother, and the fantastic Richard Brake is just as creepy as ever as Frank, and Zach Kreger actually makes a cameo as AJ's friend in the film. You barely see him, but he's there. You hear him at the bar scene.
Yes.
I read about that. I didn't
Okay.
know.
And isn't there another amazing cameo? Are you going to tell us about that?
I don't think so. So
Mr. Livingston.
I presume.
Rob.
Ron Livingston is in Barbarian as
What?
well.
You know what I'm thinking? I'm still stuck in adaptation.
Yeah.
It still has me. It still has me. I'm still in the shit. Dude,
That's a good one.
we've done so many movies now.
Yeah, so I didn't miss.
You-
To be clear, any other cameos
Okay.
in this film? Ron Livingston is.
He's
not
still in the office.
in Barbarian.
He's still in the office. That's
He
what.
could have been the guy on the other line talking to Justin Long. You never know.
Ah,
Adaptation's really good.
It is.
yes.
Barbarian score was composed by Anna Drubick. There she is right there. She also did the music for Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark and the Fear Street series on Netflix. And over here is Joe Murphy. Joe Murphy was the editor. He was also the editor on 2020's Paper Spiders, which was also shot by Zach Kuperstein. And there's Zach Kuperstein, who you saw at the top of the episode, the cinematographer. We'll be running his full interview on February something.
Leave that up. Don't take away from that. You leave it to a cinematographer. Just make sure the light is hitting his face just right as it breaks
Yeah.
through the skin of the sun.
Yeah. Look at it. Yeah.
Nice.
All right, so there it is. There it is. Let's talk about Barbarian. So first, your favorite parts. And I've got some. You kind of gave me a heads up on these a little bit, and I've got some clips pulled, and I'll put them on the screen as you're talking as best I can. Yeah.
I don't remember exactly what I told you.
You set him up so perfectly and he just let you down immediately out of the box. Just play it, man. Whatever you play, I'll talk about it. Just play it.
I got yours here.
Oh, yeah,
I don't want you to think I'm being rude looking at my phone, but I made my notes and I wanted my
Oh,
notes.
no, it's
handy.
cool.
He's all
That's cool,
prepared.
man. Go for it.
Yeah, look at
This
me.
was yours.
First, just really quick, like this guy was like, you have to see this movie. I hadn't been to the theater much at all because of COVID. He was like, you have to come see this. I was like, I don't want to go. And he was like, I'll buy your ticket. So I was like, all right, I'll go. And
Yeah.
I was glad he did because it's like fucking just blown away by this movie. Because
Yeah.
I heard something or read something that was like, don't look at a preview, don't read anything about it, just go in blind. So I did, and I didn't know what I was getting into. I thought it was gonna be like a dark fantasy at first, and then I saw the poster. I was like, no, it's not that.
Yeah.
And then right as we're walking in the theater, I told him I didn't know anything about it at all, and he's like, Barbarian's an anagram for Airbnb, and I was like,
Okay.
fuck you, dude.
Right,
Like, why
right,
did you
right,
tell me
right.
this shit?
Right.
But then.
Which
And
is
then we were
still,
arguing about it's not really the letters
Yeah,
don't all
which
match up.
it's still in
And we were
dispute.
debating is an anagram, does all the letters have to go like one for one, or
Right.
can it kind of mix up?
Is it just a word you can make out of another word, or do you have to use all? Because most people like anagrams because it's like a puzzle and you have to use every letter.
What letter was left over?
Well, I think
You got some paper?
Barbarian is a little bit longer, I think, than Airbnb.
Yeah.
I think if you count,
Use
if you
extra
count the
A in
letters,
there.
but you need
Yeah.
Airbnb in order to
Yeah.
spell barbarian.
I know, a barbarian.
Right.
A barbarian. There you go. We
Right.
use all. That's what I'm here for. I am on fire tonight.
That
God
can be
damn.
it. That's how you solve it. That's how you solve it. But
Yeah.
people were, I don't know. I think some people.
Well, the ruling is you got to use all the letters.
right.
You got to use them all.
Is it?
I, looked
I mean,
it-
yeah.
That's what I said.
That's not the
what I
rule I follow.
That's what I thought, but I looked it up and I think there's technically
Who
they say
told you that, Webster?
well, I don't know.
Fuck with
Maybe.
you, man.
We're derailing the show. We're going to talk about anagrams.
Okay, we're
We're
gonna
going to debate that. That's going to be the debate the whole time.
It's very compelling material we got going on right here. We're talking about letters.
All right.
Well, Zach Kreger was asked about it himself. He's like, "Did you intend it that way?" And he's like, "No." So people thought it was cool, and he was like, "Oh, I didn't mean it that way. It just happened to be that way."
It's still cool. And I heard you say earlier you thought
Fuck that. He's being
coy.
no
He's being
way.
humble.
He's being coy.
He's being humble.
Because then it's on Barbarian Street or whatever.
Yes,
and,
yes.
and then,
Barbarian Lane, yeah.
and something about the number on the house leads back to like a time where like the Roman barbarians or something were.
Yeah.
That's what he
And
was
just
telling
like,
me.
yeah, no, none of that. It's all coincidence. No,
Right.
no, I don't think so.
Maybe not. Yeah.
I wonder if he did he get some
God,
heat?
lost my life on that one.
Did he get some heat from Airbnb being like, "This is corporate disparagement. We don't want you to hurt
Maybe
our
for
brand."
legal reasons.
And then
Yeah.
he tried to downplay it
That
in
would
retrospect. Maybe
be, if anything.
Oh, well, I know a rule he follows. You don't have to use all the letters. He's like, I had an extra A. I had an extra A.
right. You're right.
That would be the. Well, I posted this in a horror group, and somebody like brought up how they watched this movie in an Airbnb for the first time, and it was like
Creepy.
it
Like checking the
increased
basement.
terror factor. Yeah, and then I started thinking like that needs to be a thing where, fuck going to the theater. Like you have
You go to the place.
Like I want to see Jaws on a cruise. Like,
Right.
Go to the lake and watch Friday 13th. I mean, watch Jason.
I
Watch
haven't,
The
I
Exorcist
Yeah.
in
haven't
an abandoned
experienced like
church.
that. Sorry.
Can you imagine seeing Child's Play in an
I'm gonna stab
abandoned
you.
Toys R Us?
I was just thinking that's what I was
All
like.
the toys, right? Like,
He said he had an interesting story, so apparently he's about to tell what happened here. We're
There-
gonna go so viral.
There's a movie called The Darkness with Kevin Bacon where it starts out when they're in the Grand Canyon and there's like these spirits that follow them home. But we watched it. I had downloaded it on an iPad and we took it camping in a canyon. And I didn't know it was starting in a canyon. But there's a whole story about this. We thought it was gonna be like park and camp, but we get there and it's like a 2-mile hike up and down the canyon through the woods to get to the campsite. So it was an adventure. We weren't ready for that, carrying like 100 pounds of stuff. But anyway, we turned the movie on, and it was like dark, and the canyon is all this creepy noise in the woods. That was a good experience.
If
Yes.
Airbnb was smart, they would capitalize on this, and they would like include like, hey,
Free
for
rental.
this, you get like a free link to stream Barbarian. When
Yeah.
you get at Airbnb, like experience the movie the way it was meant to be experienced.
And never go to an Airbnb again.
Yeah. Yeah, well, like we've even arranged the clients in Airbnb that have the comments from other people who stay with them to slightly creep them out. So you'll be staying at a place you don't feel extremely safe.
It's
Earth.
already
Earth. What was your you said what we're doing scariest moments?
Favorite
Favorite.
parts.
What was your favorite part?
Favorite part was, I think it was when Justin Long's character is going down, descending yet another layer into this tunnel, and then it was cut with I'm trying to remember the female's character's name, but she's talking to the homeless guy, and the homeless guy is letting her know, oh no, there's something even worse than that that woman down there. So it's like, oh no, what is it? It just hyped up the tension so much.
And that's the
And
crazy.
the way they edited it was perfect. The timing of that, because that's when he arrived at the door with the I think there was a bell on it or
Oh,
something.
yeah.
And then the big monster woman was creeping up on him, and then she walks away into the darkness, and it's just perfect tension.
I'll say that for that scene there. Number one, let's go ahead and get Guinness Book out to that house for that longest tape measure ever in history.
Yeah.
That was the longest fucking tape measure ever.
And the most convenient tape measure.
Like,
that,
yeah.
They pop off and snap in once.
And I just love how it shows again how big of a monster he was, not because of what he is alleged to do, but you heard him. He was like, he's already trying to finagle. Like, wait a minute, I can say the total area of the house, and he's going down there just getting like the devil. I was like, I cannot wait for this fucker to get it because he's just a bad person at that point, man. And to your point earlier, he mentioned it being a dark fantasy, or it was a dark fantasy for the dad.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was living a dark fucking fantasy, but we'll get that later. What was you?
Yeah, well, no, but Justin Long, that like you were talking about going into it blind, and that was a really good point. Like many people, I've heard that from a lot of people, and I didn't watch any teasers or trailers or anything before going into it. But the only thing that I happened to come across was Justin Long made a tweet that said like, I'm the worst person ever in this movie or something like that. Like my character is so despicable. So that was the only, I went into it expecting him to be the killer, which kinda,
There's layers to it.
It is layers.
but
Barbarian,
he was like despicable in like 3 other ways that I did not see that coming at all.
it's just, but again, if you look at it, it's more than one Barbarian in the film, and that's what I think is beautiful.
Yeah.
It's not just talking about, without burying the lead, you know what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, we could bury the lead. There's going to be spoilers.
Oh, okay, too late. Oh, yeah, man. The mom dude's a dad. the monster's a dude dad,
The
mom.
monster's a dude dad.
Dave?
Yeah, the clip you just played though, that was hands down my favorite part. When you go from the transition to this horrific nightmare to Justin Long in the car, and it just kind of seems like it switches gears to like a comedy all of a sudden.
Out of nowhere.
It plays
It was like,
happy
oh, what's
music.
going on now? But
Yeah,
it's
it is
a
a
really
very
good
different-
transition. But when he's backing up with the friggin' tape measure, and you know what he's backing up into, and he's like, jackpot, here we go. That was, for me, it was just like, this is amazing.
It's a good point I didn't think about. It did switch, and it's unforgiving. It doesn't tell you, warn you. You think you're watching a flashback, but again, what I still love it does kind of turn into a comedy for a split second, so you think, and then 30 seconds you're into the ride. It's like he's coming to his mind on what actually happened. Like, wait a minute, so is she going to sue me or this? He's at each point trying to figure out how fucked up is he, and he's like, you know what? I think I'll call her. Like, dude, no, man, what are you doing? No.
Those are
And he did call her later. He did call her sick son of a bitch, came home plastered, and yeah.
The best horror movies is when you can create a character like that you really, really want to see get it, because then you're like you have the final girl, and she's smart, she's doing what you would be screaming at her to do if she wasn't doing it like the 80s movies. So you're rooting for her to live. So you have that dynamic, and then you have Justin Long come along, and you're immediately like, I can't wait for this dude to die. So no matter what happens in this movie, you're going to be satisfied.
Remember, we were talking to the cinematographer, and we were talking about the Jordan Peele having a little hand in on it, right? You didn't catch that from what you just said, like how she was when she was getting ready to go into that closet. She's like, nope, that was the jump. Nope, she dropped the line. Nope.
Yeah, I remember that.
Oh, you mean? Oh, yeah, I know what I'm doing. God damn it.
Kreger wanted to get Jordan Peele's blessing.
Yeah.
He was like, because your movie, that was your title. So is it okay if we do this? And Peele
And she was getting ready to go right, and she's like, nope. I was like,
Yeah.
there we go. All right, keep it going.
I was wondering if it was like a shout out. Yeah,
It's a
that's
slick little shout out.
My second favorite part though is the flashback to the car, to the guy, the barbarian guy coming out of the house and going to the grocery store.
Okay.
on the
Yeah.
prowl.
Right,
Yeah,
looking like
just-
Breaking Bad, and then motherfucker, he's on shopping.
Yeah. It just was such a I don't know, just really well done.
Eerie. So eerie.
He didn't even have to say a word. You felt the creep in the darkness in
Right.
him.
Yeah,
This was-
you're immediately like, oh, that's the house, and you're like, oh, this must be the dungeon master.
Yeah.
And
And I didn't expect that from this is it's not a low budget compared to like indie films that are shot locally, but it's a low budget compared to studio films. And to watch a whole neighborhood that was filmed on that was built on an abandoned farm in some other country that it's slipping my mind right now, but that much set decoration.
Is it Bulgaria?
Bulgaria. Yes.
I know what I'm fucking
And
doing.
the grocery store too. Yeah, this is really.
And we talked to Zach about this in the interview, that the camera angles and the lenses and the just the perspective of this whole flashback is so interesting, from the grocery store, and then when they do that jump cut when he's sitting outside the car, and it's like he's immediately at her house like that. That was just so neat.
Two things I know you appreciated from the scene you were just talking about. Number one, you appreciated how much he hated his neighbors. Like, he despised to be able to talk to his neighbor. Like, as bad as he turned into a normal citizen for a minute. He was just like, and then the dude's trying to tell him they're leaving, but then he goes. I call it the Dahmer effect. He's like, you're not leaving. He was like, I'm never going nowhere, because he had already built that house with all that shit in it. He's not going anywhere, and he knew if the neighborhood's finna get fucked up, wasn't nobody finna come looking for shit.
Yeah.
And he's still there 40 years later or whatever. So yeah.
Right.
That whole scene is just so
You guys are making me mad. I was so prepared to kill this movie. Now I'm sitting here talking about it, and I realized I liked it more than I thought I did.
I made the mistake of playing the scene, and now I can catch myself sitting here watching it, because And I love the fact that it goes standard definition on this, but somehow feels wider than the rest of the movie because of the lens that they use.
It's like, it feels like a fisheyes in the shopping cart with them almost at a certain point.
Yeah.
But to his point, the reason that's why, again, when you do a film, sometimes you have to be an artist with the lens. And the reason why I say that is because, to his point, as far as him being on the prowl, that's a view of someone on the prowl, like, you know what I'm saying, that gaze, that wide gaze. And it was a cinematography film. This was amazing, man. A+ in my opinion.
That when you're letting your demons control you and steer where you're going, like that jump cut from the grocery store to her house, almost like it was not a decision that he was making. Like,
what was that bell for?
Right.
The what?
And don't give me the PC answer. What was that bell for? I mean, really think. Is the bitch getting up, coming in there, feeding them, or what's that bell for?
I'm so curious to know.
Because I thought it was like, oh shit, they coming after us. He's hitting the bell to warn her we're in trouble or something. But what was that bell for?
I don't know.
or it could have been an old bell from when he kept the girls down there before, and he just never uninstalled it.
That's true.
I think my favorite, that reminded me of whatever reason, my favorite part was the when Justin Long is looking around in his room when he finds that Richard Brake's room, and it's like the slowest put him up. He's just casually like looking for his gun, and he grabs it and just slowly.
Yeah,
I'm like, this is what
that was
but
good.
It's threatening because it's here now. Like,
Right. It didn't need to be sudden, and it was
Yeah.
still very disturbing.
It's
And
still-
like you're like, oh no, this is
Okay.
This is
Yeah.
getting worse.
This is what I thought about, and it was too late at night. And I think I was about 6 blue moons in at this point. I'm watching it, and I'm like, okay, what's the irony here? First off, we can all agree that this movie is very dark. There's some graphic shit in this film. But with that being said, one of the most graphic scenes, and you'll see why I'm saying this. Here's the lead up to it. When Justin Long's down there, he sees the guy, he asks him what he wants and all this other stuff. Now, remember what Justin Long character is accused of doing, which I really think he did it after, whatever. I think he did it. So he's down there, he sees the tapes, he puts one in, and what I love about it, because it leaves it to your imagination, but the film is already so graphic and dark, but it won't show you what's happening. So in my mind, I was like, damn, this dude in the bed, that is so sick that even a sexual predator, he looks at him like, man, what kind of sick shit is this?
Yeah.
We be raping bitches, but we ain't doing this. You're like, what are you doing?
Yeah, that was the scariest part for me.
Exactly.
Because if you look at the names of
Redhead Store, or
Redhead Store,
Blockbuster
gas
Blue,
station.
Computer Blue.
One of them just says puker. Oh,
What did it say?
It says puker.
Oh my God, I'm
It's
glad I
vile.
missed that. Oh my God.
It was so
Just
vile.
the labeling and just, I don't know. The whole movie seems like kind of a moral lesson, kind of on like objectification of women and with Justin Long's character with the.
I brought this up in the interview about Justin Long's character. If you guys remember, number one, he needs to stop going in basements, because the second time he's got killed in the basement, and like Jeepers Creepers, and his eyes got fucked up both times.
Oh, yep.
I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
that was
the
a
eyes.
homage. That
Yeah.
had to have been.
I like Jeepers Creepers.
Oh, I like Jeepers Creepers. I just hated the end.
Right. It was a little abrupt.
Yeah, it's like what the music's playing, Justin Long, and then it's gone.
Yeah.
I just feel the need to throw it out there every time Jeepers Creepers is brought up that the director is a diddler.
Yes.
The studios seem to forgot about that, but
You know what's so funny about that? I want them to go back and watch our Howard the Duck episode, because you flip-flop like a flounder,
Was
fucker.
he, and I stand by what I said, it was a victimless crime.
Somebody. Okay. Anyway, continue.
You're talking about Jeffrey.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Well, I have that. I'm not even gonna get into it. Right
Okay.
It's not the time to debate where I stand on CP.
Was that
Child
direct-
Protective Services.
Angela, lock the doors.
Yeah. How do we get there?
I
Got to back our way out now.
was going
So,
to ask,
go ahead.
was that director Proyas? Alex Proyas?
I couldn't think
that
of
his
his
name?
name. I didn't want to say the wrong one.
Because I think he did Dark City, and he was on the rise, and then
he did Powder as well.
okay, yeah,
And
I
that
think
was
it was.
like, that's what was so
Dark City.
weird.
The drug or the movie?
He did Powder after he was convicted and served time.
Okay,
And Powder is like Buena Vista, which is Disney.
Disney, yeah.
Like, you guys
had Disney
really care about the
connections, yeah.
kids, huh?
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was a big scandal. Weird.
we're doing good.
Favorite. So I think we were in favorite parts.
Yeah.
I said what mine was.
Favorite part is, again, like I say, just really talking with you guys about it again. I'm now starting to realize I had more favorite parts than I thought that I would. I I don't know if it's a favorite part, but it was just like, this guy is really just a sick fuck. When he tells her what he's going to do. Justin Long's like, and he really, I don't know who was sicker now that I think about it, but he's on top of the thing. He was like, damn, she's coming out to both of us. I can get away. And then he just like, and then he sees her after he lets her go. He comes down there. He was like, oh, I'm so sorry. I had to do it. I am so sorry. Like, and it was
that right there tells you
after she came back for you. She came back.
That tells you everything you need to know about the phone call that you see in the first scene.
It answers the question. He isn't that, because he kept saying, he said, maybe I'm just a bad guy. Maybe no, you are, sir. You're coming to terms with it, but you wasn't what was on them tapes. You're not a puker.
Yeah, that's a really good way. Like what you were saying about this being about like a message about objectifying women, and especially in Hollywood. What I really liked about this movie is that it could be considered a woke film, but it is a lot like Jordan Peele's films. It's so layered and like metaphors and not in your face. Like Candyman kind of got in your face, but that was intentional. That was supposed to be that way.
I love the new Candyman.
Yeah, but they weren't apologetic about it being in your face either, which makes it forgivable. But this one was layered really deep. Like you could watch it as just a slasher film, you could watch it as an art house film, or you could watch it as a really smart social commentary if you're smart enough to like read in between all the lines. Like the fact that the worst villain in this whole movie is the Hollywood A-lister.
I can see that. I can see
good storytelling, to believe in yourself as a writer well enough that you can get your point across without spoon feeding the audience, and also give them something that's like just like sugar on top, so they can enjoy it if they don't want to go beneath the surface.
What I really liked about it also, and I thought about one of my favorite moments of it, when I remember, number one, let's give her a shout out for coming back, because she didn't have to come back for him. But when she came, right, when she was trying to tell Pennywise there, Skarsgård, she's trying to tell Skarsgård that something's down there. He's like, chill, almost as if he's in on it, which he's not. But this what got me. He goes down there, and then he goes down again, and then so she comes looking for him, and she gives that. She didn't say it, but it's almost like she wanted to say, how the fuck you got down there? Like, not in the basement, the bottom of the basement, that extra layer. Like, why are you there? And what I loved about that is basically him saying it without saying it. I'm gonna just go ahead and say it. It's WPS. It's white people shit. Why are you down there? Stop it. You shouldn't have done that. But he didn't have to show it. But everybody was thinking, like, the fuck is he doing down there? And she still helped him. She didn't see color. She still helped him. And then he was like, no, we got something bit me. We got to go this way. Oh, you got the mangies.
He would come with me this way. That's where
that's what I'm saying. He was going. That's what'll happen when some 10-year debacle incestual chick bites you with 10-year rabies. It immediately takes effect. It does not take long.
Yeah.
It takes Justin long, though. See what I did there? I am on fire tonight.
Are there any other parts that you guys wanted to talk about before we just get into random points?
Yeah, like the beginning, just the whole opening sequence. I loved how the movie kept you guessing. You really thought that Skarsgård was going to be the bad guy at first. He just seems like such a creep, probably because of his previous roles, but also just he has that vibe to him. But I really was like thinking, like, don't go in the house, like, don't go in there. And then it just really kept you guessing the whole time. In the beginning, and that whole opening sequence with her arriving in the rain was just like really well shot. And
all the little details with her on her phone, like double checking the email with the code, and again, it's the casting is so brilliant when everything works well together. It's like they knew when they wrote that we need to get somebody that people are going to assume is bad, so we could play, like, when you can anticipate what the fears of the audience are going to be, and then you can manipulate them and play off of those fears and pull the rug out from under them. And then like Hereditary did that in a really good way.
So,
I think Skarsgård was on lewds in that movie.
But it was so like the opening is brilliant, because it sets you up to where now you don't know, like, you never really trust your intuition for the rest of the movie, and they really can play with
I mean, hell, she could have been a killer for all we knew. At that point, it opens it up. That I mean, you never know.
Yeah.
You know, but what I really like about it, the reason why I say he was on Lose doing this, because I was thinking about, first off, he's always trying to get to a little bottle of wine. He's always feeling real good. He came to the door. He was like, no, just come in. You don't have to go. But not that. It was when he left and came back the next day, and she was at the window begging for her life. You're like, what are you doing down there? Like, God damn, brother, you not sense danger? That's why you just got your head banged into the wall later on in the movie.
Like playing with it too, because he was like ultra nice, like
Too
super
nice. Yeah,
accommodating.
yeah.
Like, no, I'm not gonna have a woman sleeping on the couch, and I noticed you didn't drink it before. I'm gonna let you watch me open it this time. Like,
Yeah.
they know that the audience is thinking like, oh, they think we're stupid. They're like,
Exactly.
well, I'm not gonna fall.
I'm
for
gonna-
this
okay.
nice guy shit, and really, it's like, you are stupid. He is that nice.
Oh, not just quite. He's 99.9.
he always is skeptical about somebody.
I'm going to tell you why now, because I think we all thought about this. We're all men. Let's just go ahead and be honest here. The mystery of the door. The movie will have you think old girl came from downstairs and opened up that door. No, there's a flip side of that coin, my friend. Been a while since I said that one. I know what I know I heard because I'm a man and I've done it before. I don't make that sound, but I know what that sound was on that couch, what he was doing. So all I'm saying is he went back and opened up the door, got a little slight view of her, and was handling himself. And when she came out that room, what did he do? What's wrong with you? Am I wrong? It's a theory, is it not?
This brings me right back to Jeffrey with Howard the Duck, victimless crime.
He opened the door.
Say he did take a little peek at her.
They could do a little prison time then. Yes.
Was she touched?
Yes, emotionally. Yeah, no, man, come
Only
on, brother.
because She
No.
was nosy and got up to go find.
Yeah, because she heard a man he hauling out there on himself. It was you. I wish you had the damn sound. It was like, he sounded like that dude in there with Forrest Gump's mom.
It sounded like you when you ate that one chip challenge.
I know that did sound like that. You're right. Yeah, that did sound like that. That is exactly how. And then he plays the game that we've all played before. Like if your mom busts in the room when you're 14, what are you doing?
He was just say he was doing that. He was just making sure he was like, what do you do? Like when you want to.
I pull out my
I'm
phone.
just gonna.
He had one, right? Did you open the door? No. Like, God damn, bro. Like, okay, I'm sorry. That's my theory. You see, they're not saying no. They think this could have happened now.
New interactions.
Barbarian. All three of them.
New interactions feed new scenarios into the spank bang. Who doesn't take advantage of those?
I would never have done that. I wasn't raised that way, David.
Okay. All right. Tell me
Hey,
the
Mom.
truth after we
I'm
end
telling you the
podcast.
truth now. I didn't know. I would have pulled out my phone.
And then what? Recorded her?
No. If I'm going to masturbate, and furthermore,
No, because you can look at your phone any day. Like this is a real live living woman.
Angela, lock both doors.
You
Go
can
ahead.
get the message, like, close your eyes and think about what could happen
If it's her not being in the house just enough, like, man, she's right over there. I mean, he at least could have went in the bathroom. How did we get here?
Get to the
You
road.
took
Yeah.
us here because you suspect him as being.
What percentage of that is true? Probably that is because that happened. What percentage? One.
Let's say it did happen. What does that make him a bad guy?
Yes, a barbarian. Let's keep it going.
No,
Yes.
I disagree.
He said yes.
Well, I'm saying there's levels to it, and that could be one.
Although, and that would lead into the theme that everybody in it is
The bar-
objectifying women to different degrees.
Barbarian.
Okay, whatever. But I don't think there's anything wrong.
She ain't been in here in 15 years. I knew he was dying, right?
Right? You think there's anything wrong with it?
I seem to remember a noise
Creep.
I thought there was a noise that the woman made right before that part where like you hear like "Rah!" which maybe that was him too. People make little weird noises.
He might maybe he was doing like a mating call. If I do it and she does it, it's like I don't
That was.
I agree with Royal. The generally thing to do: take your phone to the restroom, take a shower,
do something,
run
man.
some water.
Have some respect about yourself when you masturbate about the girl that just randomly showed up in the other room with the door closed.
Maybe he gets off on almost getting caught.
Oh no, he'll eventually
That's
get
the
caught
thing.
by the
That's the thing,
police.
yeah.
He'll eventually get caught by the feds. He's gonna get caught.
Yeah, he got caught. Next scene. But yeah, I don't. So what? What?
Oh, yeah, okay, all right. This shows when we get. I'll be looking for a host next season. My compadre here will somehow be saying what you want smoke what?
What you do with my later, man?
I didn't do anything.
Don't go to sleep
That's-
around Durden. He will look at you.
I'm afraid to be awake around this motherfucker now. You getting nervous now? Look at him. He's sweating and shit. Okay. All right. Well, okay. Let me ask you. I know we're still going round robin. Everybody answer the question. We can start with them. Doesn't matter. What was the most gruesome part of the film to you? Like the most gruesomest moment for you?
So that's easy.
Yeah,
We'll see. We'll see.
The breastfeeding.
Yeah. Oh, he took mine. There you go. That was it.
Breastfeeding, yeah.
That was it.
The detail.
Mother's milk my ass. What? That's
Yeah.
incest milk.
Or the bottle with the hair on.
Yeah,
on
With the condom wrapped on top of that was a condom, right? Or was I tripping?
Oh, Zach Kuperstein actually brought that up in the interview.
looked like
I think it was like an old
That,
school.
that wasn't
Right.
an accident. No, it wasn't Zach. It was in the trivia that hair got stuck there on accident because we kept falling off with the guy, and
It's a
they were
good.
like, that actually looks a lot more
Yeah.
disgusting. Just
Yeah.
put more on.
Good
Actually,
accident.
Keep it.
It was
Yeah.
so disgusting, man. And that tape
That's
hadn't
not what I was
popped.
expecting when I said, "Well, that's an easy answer." I didn't expect the bottle scene or that. Although that was.
I was going to agree with him. That
I laughed when Justin Long was doing that because I just thought like I've seen pictures with Zach Kreger and Justin Long, and it seems like they're chummy at least enough to like roast each other a little bit. And
Oh, he got it right
just
from the
knowing
teat.
Zach Kreger's sense of humor and the dark things that he laughs at and finds funny, I just imagine when I saw Justin Long sucking the teat, like I feel like Zach Kreger is like, yeah, let's do it for like 7 more minutes.
To quote-
like the Kubrick, we need
The
like
Kubrick.
7
Need another
more takes
take.
of that. Like,
To quote the great Jack Burns, I have nipples, Greg. Can you milk me?
Yeah.
Dude, that and to his point, I'll just say going with you on that because I did think that was the nastiest part for several reasons. It was like you said. First off, I'm glad you guys told me there was not a condom on top of the bottle. But think about it this way: if Justin Long knew the alternative, like it either drink this now or I'm gonna bring you in that room and force my nipple into your mouth. I guarantee you, he'd have pulled that bottle out and chugged the shit out of it in that cave. And he got drug in there, and he was like you say, chomping at the bit, or should I say the tit?
Yeah.
He's chomping at the tit. That good God, what was in? And that's another thing I did want to know. How did she get so strong? That's the only thing I don't think I thought you're supposed to get weaker and dumber,
Yeah.
like the more offspring you are.
You're right.
The most gruesome part to me, which I thought everybody was going to say, was Skarsgård, his death, his
Yeah.
head bashing. That just
Oh yeah.
Oh, that was number
just
one. Yeah, at
abrupt.
first.
It just came out of nowhere, and it was kind of like the Hereditary effect, where it's like, oh man, he's gone like already. This is the
Right.
first act of the film, barely. Like,
Oh, thank you for saying that. He's just confirmed it. It's 100% now. Rotten Tomatoes fresh, baby.
what?
I was just thinking, like, damn, she killed him on the first bang. My head goes bang, bang, bang. She killed him on the first bang. So I'm like, why does she keep doing it? That reminds me like hate fucking. So I'm like, she's killing him like that. You know how you stab somebody like you did it 27 times. It's a crime of passion. You know why? Because she knew that sick fuck was masturbating to her, and that was her baby.
Oh,
And
yeah.
she did him that way. Why
Okay.
else would she kill him like that? She was like, you mad. There you go.
Well,
You're
no,
internet. You're welcome.
They explained
So-
it like the more upset you get, the more upset she gets. And in that moment, what's her name, Georgina? I can't her character name. She was screaming at the fact that he got his head bashed, so that upset mommy,
Mhm.
mommy
Okay.
even more. And he's so
And
it just intensified.
Now, imagine how
It's kind
upset
of
she
like
was.
a recession. It just kind of gets worse the more everybody reacts
Yeah.
to the recession. It just creates more of a. That's what this movie's got, all kinds of social commentary all over it.
I'm just happy that I finally got this riddle out there. I mean, hey, watch it again. You'll see it a whole nother way. Pennywise gets over again.
Yeah, I had a head joke.
Who's
in
the
there
clown
somewhere,
now?
I can't. Huh?
Who's the clown now?
My mom said that she couldn't hear me. I turned myself up a little bit. Hopefully that's helped.
Am I even here? Because I don't even think they know is this like a proxy? Are you pretending that I'm here? It's like, I want to see the real live feed here because she said nothing to me. She hasn't said hi. Good to see you again, Royal. It's been fun. It's been real. Am I here?
Yeah, you're here.
I'm real. Okay.
Justin, did you say what your the most brutal part was?
That was the first one that came to mind. The head bashing against the tunnel wall in there in the dark, because it was so sudden and well executed, like
Yeah.
gore, just very solid slasher stuff. That was probably the most.
Is that the
gruesome.
scene you said you slowed down?
No,
Or no, okay.
yeah.
Okay.
That you saw the Instagram post I made with the freeze frame from that scene. So I had to arrow key through that on Premiere, like frame by frame, and you could like really examine the effects.
I like to
and
do that too. Go arrow
It
frame by
holds-
frame.
It even
just to
holds
see.
up in frame by frame. Like
Yeah.
they didn't just that wasn't just stylized to hide like some kind of mistakes or anything like that. It gets worse
Uh-huh.
when you frame by frame it.
Isn't it like right after that where it cuts to Justin Long singing the
Yeah, that's
what is
Yeah.
the song? I
she
can't remember.
screams. She screams, and then it cuts to Justin Long, and he's driving, and it's beautiful. It's scenic. it's total contrast in genres, and he's singing Ricky Tikki Tavi.
Yeah,
Right.
every act of the film is like a Coke bottle being shaken up, and as soon as the pressure builds up at the end and it pops, it goes right back to a new Coke bottle on Act 2 and
Yeah.
Justin Long driving, or like, and then when Justin Long meets the girl and the mom comes down, pops, and then they're back to the flashback. It was this like perfect pacing, like. Each act was like its own mini story that all connected. So good.
Yeah,
It
I
did,
love,
it did.
I love
I agree.
the structure of it. The structure of it's so good because it's like you're getting two different movies for the price of one almost because of the cut in the middle, and it feels like a different movie, but you approach the plot from a different perspective. And the first one's more like psychological thriller, then you have kind of horror comedy.
Yeah.
And it's just great.
Royal, real quick. My mom said, good to see you again, Royal. Thanks for not cussing so much.
That's how I know you're not watching.
We love you. Oh, this one must be for me. Love the hair. Thanks, Mom.
No, that was for me.
Okay. Touche.
Per se.
Per se.
There we go. What? Oh God, you're done now. Not that there's anything wrong with that, Seinfeld. What you call it? I got a question for everybody. And this is the only time you hear me say this. Was the black guy needed? He could have been white. I don't care. I just felt like that part was just so unneeded. Because he was just like the bomb. He would remember he was like, she ain't been over here in 15 years. What the hell does that mean? And then she comes and kills you. Just.
I'll get into that in the third when we talk
in the
about
third act.
One thing that we want to
change. That'll be well. I'm already there.
That was my one.
I didn't feel like he was needed at all. I was just like,
man, that is crazy. Like, I'm glad you said. I don't think that he was not needed. I think a character like that was useful, but I think that of all how intelligent the rest of the film was put together, it seemed like that part just kind of leaned on tropes that were just so common in horror movies, like the old wise, mysterious black guy that you don't really know what he's about, and then he's about this. He was trying to save the day. And
I'm glad he didn't go all Candyman.
like, we're safe here behind this fence.
Who was
really?
we? There were 3 people that lived in that neighborhood, and 2 of them was renting an Airbnb. Talking about we. He was one of them.
By the way, the reason that part was weird to me, like the fact that they were safe just behind this fence down the street, and originally the movie was going to end in the church, in like an abandoned church, but it would have been too Candyman-esque, so they scratched that. There happened to be a silo on the barn that Zach Kuperstein had the idea to use that instead and make that there, but there wasn't really like an interior of a silo for the old man to be hunkered down in.
I like that.
So then they just like shifted it to outside the silo with the fence around it. So that part, like I understand how they got there, but it's the only part in the movie that kind of took me out of the element and reminded me that, like, okay, this is something where writers are making decisions for the convenience of a plot.
Sure. I agree.
I guess your point there. I kind of liked his character. I liked because when you first see him, he's like running at her, like say a little girl. You're like, oh my god, what's going on? You think he's like gonna attack her or something, and it was just another example of the movie making you think something, and then it's the complete opposite. Like she was trying to save her from.
I'd be like, where was you at last night? When I first got here, you could have ran out to me then and said this.
His approach could have been a little bit like, hey, not like he was running.
He came out right.
See, and that's the thing. I agree with you as far as like the like what they were going for, like to play on that same trope. Like, we think this is just a crazy homeless person that's spouting like this is a dangerous neighborhood. This guy is a threat. So they're playing on those fears, kind of like they do with the casting of Skarsgård. I understand what they were trying to do there, and I like what they were trying to do, but something with just the way it was conveyed and the way at the end when the reveal happens, it just wasn't.
And it's like, is she a vampire? Because remember when he pulled out, the monster didn't come out as if, oh no, the sun's going to get me. I'm not poking holes in the film. I'm trying to find out the lore, and I still. Why didn't she pull like a concrete wall down and just walk in there and kill him? That's a lot.
She busted it.
Like what? Is there any correlation between incest and strength?
Yes, there is. Yes, there is. I can't say it, but you ever heard of our strength?
No.
Oh yeah.
Because incest, I mean, that's a real.
It's a real thing. I'm going down the rabbit hole of YouTube tonight.
It can happen, I suppose.
Yeah.
And then, but again, he was doing it over and over and over again. So I guess it's like to the 10th degree. Because she's like
Or like in Midsummer, you become like the scribe of the town or whatever.
Yeah.
I can't remember the character's name, but
Yeah,
they just barely cut to that guy a few times, and it's like the most memorable part of that movie to me. It's like him just sitting there doing the drawings or whatever the hell.
Yeah, just follow I mean, really, that's such that's a whole conversation about like where religion comes from. We just lean on the scriptures of the most insane.
And who's her mom? She was so tall. Is there any correlation between incest and height? Like, she was like, I need more answers. Maybe I'm bringing it. I don't know, man. Maybe it's just me. I think it's a great film.
Yeah, I've always understood it to be like the more generations of inbreeding, like the more problems they have. Like that's what happens to so much European royalty.
I got you. Well, it does make sense. Now, I guess if things can go wrong, they can go good too, like get extra strength, I guess.
But there's exceptions. There's exceptions to the rule, and like you're talking about our strength or whatever. I've heard of that. I don't know how much medical science there is to back it up, but I think what happens is maybe you just become a little more superlative, maybe in just a very narrow area, and that very narrow area just maybe the stature and physique of this giant monster.
I'm gonna tell you what really drove her crazy. Is watching that same damn DVD for 30 years. I'd have drove my ass crazy too. Shit.
Yeah, especially if it was the worst thing that could happen.
Right. That's all she knows. Oh, you gonna suck that tit? Hey, I'm being honest, man. I'm being honest.
She's like, no, this is going down.
Yeah, hey, everybody getting a piece of this. Ring that bell again, Dad. I'm coming.
Like, you heard Netflix and chill? How about
yeah. Oh man. What?
Nothing.
Breastfeeding VHS. But that the whole scene with that guy's running at her, that was like right when
VHS and incest.
There we go.
Sorry.
I like that.
Right.
I like that.
Join us next week for Incest Corner.
VHS and incest. I like that.
No, but that scene where she comes out, like, because when she arrives, it's dark. You only see the house that's lit up that she's going into, and then the next morning, after all the events and those scenes, when she comes outside, and it's like the only like put together house. Every other house is completely destroyed and abandoned, and the whole neighborhood is just like.
You heard what that lady said. That was one of the scariest parts of the movie. The lady's like, "You're staying where?"
Yeah,
and it's like a 5-second beat. Like,
she's like, "Oh, I know." It's like, "No, you should not be there."
Yeah.
On purpose, you're staying there.
That's a whole other fear that we didn't even talk about. Yeah, too, is because I travel a lot with the shooting that I do, and sometimes I don't have a choice to where my accommodations are. And a lot of the times when I do have a choice, you don't know like the area where you're going to. You don't know like
exactly,
stay away from this street, but this street's good. In some cities, like when we moved up to St. Louis, it was very much like this block is let your kids out after dark. 2 blocks over, get murdered after 6 o'clock.
Remember, you went to go meet the guy who was the basis for Kill?
Yeah. But there's like that is such an unsettling feeling to be just in a place that you're not sure of, that just feels unsafe. Like you feel unsafe out of your own element anyways, but then to add a horrifying crime statistics on top of that, that's
We booked a hotel in San Antonio one time, and it was like the La Quinta Inn, downtown San Antonio, and I was like, I can't believe this rate. We got $89 a night. This is beautiful. How great! And it was right near all the tourist areas. Like this is unbelievable rate. And we get there, and it's just like there was like multiple like crime scenes and like cop cars, and we were like, it was one of those hotels where it's like, here's the street and here's your door.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right.
It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
But speaking of cops, I hated those cops. And I normally hate cops for a different reason.
Yeah.
They were just assholes, especially the black guy. He's like, dude, if you didn't want to come to work, like it had to be a murder for him to leave. He was waiting for any call. They could be like, we got donuts coming. Like, we got a 42.
I think the movie did a really good job of giving you like a sense of perspective of where the cops are coming from. The fact that like this is a really bad neighborhood in a really sketchy city. Like they probably, and you heard them. Like we've got, there's actual murder.
So let me get this straight. There's a really bad neighborhood. It's really run down, and I'm telling you, somebody had somebody trapped down there. It makes sense to me.
Yeah, but they got something more they got like 17 things more pressing, and
I
they're
think they
short
thought that
staffed.
she was just crazy. 'Cause
No.
she looked all kind of beat up.
She did
and
look,
like,
yeah.
oh, yeah.
True.
And they probably that's probably like the fourth woman that's come running out looking cracked
Or
up.
they
And
know
there's
what's going on,
people-
or they know what's going on in the house, and they're like, I ain't going in that shit. Like, nah, man, we ain't nothing in there.
Either way, that was like I think they did a really good job at conveying the fact like the officers are not just being a caricature of a dick officer.
True. I'll give you that.
They conveyed like why they were the way they
You
were.
know what that scene reminded me of also when again how she, like you guys mentioned, that she looked frantic and she was looking crazy. Remember the dude off Dahmer when he first escaped out the house and ran up to the cops? They were like, "Are you on something?" And hell, he did look like he was on something. A lot of stuff, and he was. Yes, I've just been drugged. Yes, check the veins. Shit.
That's extremely similar.
Yeah, similar.
Yeah.
That's a solid parallel. I mean, and that was real.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And they brought him back. They brought that kid back to Dahmer and gave him back.
Yeah. You need some help up the stairs? Come on.
Yeah.
I was like, God dang, goodness grief. Also on the channel, if you didn't check it out, we did do a review of Dahmer, so check it out if you can.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, we did. We've done a lot, man.
Yeah.
I still haven't finished yet, but
It's nasty.
I don't want to say that I love it because Jesus, it's really brutal, but it was very well done. From what I've seen so far.
Oh,
and
yeah,
the scenes
definitely.
with him and his dad talking.
Yeah, that's tough.
I'm a
Oh,
terrible
man.
person for this, but I just laughed my ass off.
It's crazy how it starts. Like, when you just wake up out of bed and
gotta
say,
get in there and shove the hook straight
It's
up.
just Peter Jenkins just does such a phenomenal job playing like a pitch perfect, picture perfect interpretation of the father, and those scenes are tickling because of how well he does of like the desperation being conveyed so subtly. Well, not subtly, but yeah, just that parental desperation of like, you can't imagine your son being that person, and how he's like grasping this wasn't my fault. It wasn't my fault.
well, you saw how he woke up when the series started in the first episode. What do you get? He just wakes up. She's like, what's wrong? She's like, it's Jeff. Yeah, I mean, that says it all. It's Jeff. Yeah.
Well, and he's like playing with the roadkill in the garage, like, good job, son. Keep it up." He's encouraging this shit.
We finally found something we bonded over. Death
Taxidermy,
incarnate.
yeah, it's
Okay.
a thing,
All right. Okay.
it's a bit barbaric. I would
Before we
say.
get into we do something called Scene Stealer, where we talk about who we thought was the best actor who brought the best performance in the movie. Before we get into that, is there anything else about the movie in general that you wanted to talk about? We'll do a review at the end too, or we can kind of umbrella everything.
I just keep going back to the structure of the movie, because it wasn't an excessively long runtime.
Mhm.
It was under 2 hours. I think it was,
It's hour 47, but it's
Yeah,
pretty
sure.
good. Yeah.
and yet I still felt like I was saying I was getting two movies for the price of one, and it was
Mhm.
like a Grindhouse. Like when I last saw Grindhouse, but that was already 16 years ago or whatever. But Tarantino and Rodriguez, and it's like I feel like I'm getting my money's worth for sure, because you might not even like the first part, but you'll really like the second, or you'll like at least one of these. And I really love them both. I thought they worked really well as psychological thriller.
Yeah.
And just going back to that, but
Yeah, the pacing in Barbarian was it made it like
It doesn't lull at all.
right.
well, yeah, because if you're like not really like my rule, like I said in the beginning, if something doesn't grab me within 20 minutes, well, this one it was like starting over every 20 minutes and had to re-grab me, and the fact that it could like start like lay out the framework for this whole thing, and then snap you back to and have to lay out the framework for a whole other thing, and they successfully do that 3 or 4 times throughout the movie.
You get at least 3 perspectives on the main conflict.
Yes.
Yeah.
You get her perspective, you get you get Justin Long's perspective, and then you get the creepy, even the mastermind behind the dungeon and everything. You get a little bit of his perspective too, just from his vantage point anyways.
Yeah.
And
It really, again,
I like the cinematography too. Like you
yeah.
pointed out, you mentioned the formatting and the field of view. You get a wider view,
Mhm.
and it was kind of a little bit reminiscent of Zodiac.
Yeah.
Oh,
The
yeah.
Zodiac killer, and the way he would stalk and prowl.
Mhm.
And
It's not a lot of music to it either to try to make it scary or something like that. It lends itself to this atmosphere.
That's something we talked to Kuperstein about too, is how like in a lot of horror films, you don't like cinematography is kind of like way down on the priorities. Like they don't really care how beautiful the shot is. Like, did you get the blood bash?
Right.
Did you get the splatter? Like, how did you like I love horror films like Midsummer, like Hereditary,
Yeah, Hereditary.
like
Awesome.
movies and
Heads up.
what's the Suspiria? There's
Yeah.
another one that comes to mind, like art house horror films where the cinematography feels intentional. Like the story is trying to tell you something, and the cinematography is always trying to tell you something too.
I concur.
What's that? There's one.
Get Out,
I'm
did
not gonna. Yeah, Get Out. Yeah,
Which-
like Jordan Peele
No.
Speaking of
films.
Ari Aster, did you see the poster for Bo or whatever? It's
A new one?
yeah, it's Joaquin Phoenix. It's called
Oh, yeah.
Bo is Afraid.
Oh,
Joaquin
The,
Phoenix.
Say
the
no
poster
more.
is like a painting of like a young Joaquin Phoenix in like silk pajamas, and that's
Okay.
all you know. Well, there's a brief
I
description.
don't need to know anymore.
Yeah.
Just Joaquin.
Silk pajamas are such a letdown. I've already seen him in his underwear. Joker.
Yeah. All right. So who wants
I
to go
love hearing your
first?
little modals
Who
here.
wants to go first?
Bobcat, go quick.
And like, what the fuck are you saying? Just say it.
You got any more for us? Come on, man. You got any more?
No, the other one. that
Late Night
comes-
Friday with Durden.
Where's the money?
Okay, there we go.
Who would you say is like if you were given the award to somebody, the one person in the movie, who would you give it to? Let's start with Justin.
Just from the acting perspective, or just
Yeah.
any. Well, I really did like Justin Long's performance, but I also feel like I've seen that from him before.
Mhm.
The actress was kind of new to me, and I thought she was really good. Let me see. I'm thinking. Yeah, probably go with the actress, I suppose.
I think Georgina Campbell, is that her
That
name?
is her name, yes. That
Double
is her.
check that. I want to make sure I
Was
get that
it-
right.
No, that's right.
Tess, I think.
Tess. Okay.
Georgina Campbell's Tess. Yeah. Yeah. And she had to carry quite a
lot.
bit of the film too.
Yeah.
That's the other nice thing about the movie for the actors is that no one actor really had to bear too much of the burden of like like what a full feature would usually require as the person above the title. But yeah, for her, she was, it's really hard to play that character and not be like scoffed at. Like if you're, I think she played it perfectly. If you're too smart, then it's not scary.
Right.
And if
She
you're not smart enough, then the audience is like hating you because it's just you're not a believable person in that scenario. And she played that line perfectly. And the emotion that she brought to it too made it it made me believe why she didn't make the best decision in every scenario because
Right. That's
her
the
emotions were
hardest sell of the whole movie is why would she keep going down there?
there. Mhm.
But I'm with it. I'm with her from her perspective for her character. And she feels like this is the right thing to do. You don't abandon someone in that situation.
Yeah.
And so it's hard, a lot of these horror movies, it's like, why did they go upstairs? Why did they go there? But her acting, that
It was believable because even when Skarsgård, when she was going to walk away from him, and he was like, "All right, you wait up here, I'll go down there," and then because she was walking out at that point, but she still came back.
When Justin Long finds her down there, it's like one of those things where you're not really sure exactly how much time has passed, how long she's been down there. You're just like seeing her out of the blue, and you could tell by her performance that she's obviously been through some shit since the last time we've seen her. Like she is now
Right. She got fucking Stockholm syndrome. Drink that milk.
Yeah.
Get that milk.
Yeah.
I love it. That is me because she know what the alternative is. She got to go to the teat.
Yeah, so it's like really cool that like she did a really good job conveying that really quickly. It was like a 90-second scene that we see that she returns in, and it tells you everything that happened to her that we didn't see in between Act 1 and
I
Act
like
2.
how certain things were left out about it. And I know we're talking about performances, but I'll just go ahead and since he said that was going to be my scene stealer as well. Here, she definitely brought it from. Again, I always try to judge it off of how many people do you have to interact with. She interacted with pretty much from the bum. From Skarsgård to Justin Long. She had an interview with a lady who told her, "You better get your ass out of the house,"
Right.
in so many words or whatnot. And again, And again, so when you, I mean, if I'm missing somebody, I don't know if she interacted with them. The
police,
cops,
the police,
the
yeah.
police. So again,
Yeah.
she had to play off all these people. So that's why I'm definitely going to give it to her. And as well, and I think he brought it up. I didn't think about it till you just said it. It was always a mixture of she wasn't too smart, but she wasn't too dumb. Because I was like, when she got in that car, I'm sorry if that was me. I don't care who was down. I mean, other than my family and friends. But I'm thinking when she got in the car, I'm like, oh, this bitch out of here. She's gonna back up and peel rubber.
Yep.
No, she backed up and I'm like, God damn. All right, a taco truck. All right.
I'd have to. We're gonna save Greg for last, since he's the guest of honor tonight. I'm gonna give it to Bill Skarsgård, mainly because I don't want to say the same thing that you guys said.
I appreciate
I'll
that.
make Georgina Campbell my honorable mention, but Skarsgård was just so impressive to me because he tricked me. It was like watching a magic trick happen, seeing him play somebody that I had never seen him play before, and doing it well and convincingly. All the while, I'm waiting for him to turn into the person that I'm used to seeing him play, and he never does. He ends up becoming a victim, which it was really cool to see him in a role like that. And I hope that it puts him in more stuff where he's not just playing the bad guy anymore.
I think he did an awesome job too of that. He was going to be my honorable mention, especially again, like I say, there's a lot of similarities between this and Dahmer. And what I mean, and clearly Barbarian was filmed before Netflix or whatever did theirs, but you saw he kept asking her, you want some wine? You want some wine? You're like, well, I'm going to have some. So you're waiting on him to drug her or do something crazy like that.
Just trying to loosen the mood.
And eventually, apparently, you only got to ask Georgina 3 times. It's like a genie in the bottle or something. She was down in that shit, like, or whatever.
You can put a cork back in a bottle of wine.
All right. We are saving you for last. The cops have been called. We're buying time.
Yeah, so who would you go with?
I'm kind of biased because Justin Long's my boy. Like ever since Idiocracy, he's
Yeah.
like, if he's in a movie, like I'll see it, kind of thing. Because he's just, I don't know. Ever since Idiocracy, it just he kills me every time. But I don't know. I mean, Georgina definitely did more of the heavy lifting, and she did a really good job. So it's either a tie or she's my honorable mention if I have to choose.
I thought Justin Long brought something fresh to the film because, like you say, filmmakers have to be careful with this, and that's why I say this film probably is winning all those awards, because you have to have such a steady hand in writing and plot development to where you've had us in this house for quite some time. We know about some pedophilia, some weird stuff going on. We're trying to figure out Skarsgård, and all of a sudden, boom, we're on the West Coast or wherever. Justin Long's there, and it didn't feel like, he just said, you're getting more bang for your buck. Like, how can you possibly fit another act into this film? But they did it so well. He gets there, and you're never rooting for him. That's what 2 minutes into his character, I'm like, he raped that girl, because he comes in, he's like, whose stuff is in here? Like, his realtor's hanging up on him. He was like, and he's going through their stuff. He, for Christ's technology's sake, he threw like a $3,000 MacBook on the dresser. Like, I was like, what are you doing, man? You hate.
Which that was a funny callback, because he used to be like the Max.
Right.
Oh, now that I didn't know. Now that's kind of funny. I didn't know
that shit. I agree, and I think that he at least deserves an honorable mention, because that's a really ballsy role to take in this climate right now. To even like,
and he played that Hollywood bro type, like
all the way.
Just really.
He's like, where are you at? I'm in Detroit.
And
why are you?
He's like Ryan Reynolds, where they always kind of play themselves in as a different person. It never really gets old to me, because the roles that they choose are really wise. Like, that role is a lot like Justin Long, but then they throw that little spin on it, but it's still Justin Long. Even when he's like throwing the girl to the wolves at the end, it's like,
he's like, no, he tried to convince himself, like, I let you, she's dying, you're gonna lie to her about how she died?
I laughed at how outrageous, what an outrageous dirtbag
Oh yeah.
A couple moments he made me laugh, like when he fumbled with the gun.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like,
gaslighting her right into death.
He's so awful on so many levels.
Yeah.
But in fairness, now, hey, listen, he does not hesitate to make a decision. He was coming out. He was like, we both aren't going to make it. I mean, he's honest.
Yeah.
He's honest. And he always feel like he has to convince somebody. Remember what he said to his friend in front? Like, he's like, man, what really happened? That was one of the most where he was like, man, she didn't want it first. And so I'm like, well, there's your crime, buddy. Yeah, you stop right there. Now, it took some convincing, but man, like an hour later, she was totally into it. An hour later.
And then when he was trying to call her and get her, like, steer the narrative with her on the phone, his victim, the same way he's trying to like run down and steer the narrative.
And then he left a voicemail.
It was a perfect parallel. He fucked that girl, tried to steer the narrative, and then he fucked Georgina and tried to steer.
And that's why he
narrative
says, maybe I'm just a bad person. Maybe you're just a barbarian.
Yeah.
He's the real Barbarian.
Yeah, he is, because I kept thinking, like, as sick as what that dude was doing, that was his MO. That was his thing. He was a one-trick pony. He incest girls. Justin's long throwing bitches off the towers. He's raping them. He's trying to get people evicted from his Airbnb. He's just out here. He's blaming everybody except himself. He's a bad guy.
Yeah.
I would still go with him over the Dungeon Master as far as like he's
Yeah.
I mean, he had at least 20, 30, 40 victims.
He's lying to people in the
Justin Long, we only
ads
know
for the
about 2
house.
victims,
Right.
so,
Yeah.
Huh?
but still, he's
And he really is a dirtbag. Only a dirtbag would rent out that Airbnb in that neighborhood. Why would you turn the house into Airbnb?
No, that part I couldn't understand. He's like that. I see. I literally rent from somebody right now that's like one of those. They don't even know what the fuck.
Is his
they
name
have.
Justin?
They're just somebody with a lot of money. They gobble up. They get like, hey,
Okay.
so handle my
Okay.
money. Get some houses for me. Get some rent.
He's a
coming in.
thief. He broke into those people's property trying to see what's going on.
also that whole scenario where he shows up to the Airbnb, there's all this luggage, and he calls and they're like, you haven't had a renter in like 4 weeks, and that doesn't ring any bell. Like, I don't know. I feel like his performance. Normally, you'd be like, why the hell would he like see that and be like, I'm gonna go dig around in the basement? But
Yeah.
he really sold the like greedy landlord, like,
Yeah.
ooh, more square footage. Like,
Yeah.
Motherfucker
Right.
says,
And that was funny.
Anybody down there? I'm serious. Or you get blown away as he goes to grab a fucking butter knife out of the fucking kitchen.
Yeah, like Kevin McAllister would have been better equipped to go down in that basement.
Like, good grief, man. I'm seriously Scar. Why did he want to go back that way? It was like a drug. He needed more. She just bit me, and I like it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you haven't seen the movie yet, I don't know why you're still watching right now. But if you haven't seen it, like that should tell you how awesome of a movie it is, because right here, like we've named every person that's in it pretty much that's carrying the movie as our scene stealers. So, yeah.
go see it.
Yeah, please,
With that
yeah.
said,
I recommend
what
it.
would you? We got like 2 more questions here about the film, and then we'll wrap it up. If you could change anything about Barbarian, what would you change?
To what you were speaking about earlier about the homeless character, and it seemed maybe you felt he was a little bit shoehorned in. I agree that the final act isn't the best of the 3 acts. It becomes a little more conventional, but that's also okay, because you got to deliver the goods. If people want to come see this movie and they heard it's a nasty, raw horror movie, you got to give some goods. So this guy gets ripped apart. So that was the most gruesome part, really. I'm thinking that was worse than what happened to Skarsgård. The guy getting ripped apart. I don't know. I don't even know how I forgot that.
That did
But
happen. Oh yeah.
if I was going to change something, maybe something in the final act. The final act is what I would say is less than perfect, but I think the first 2 acts are close to perfect. So.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. That would be my thing that I would change to, is that, like, I agree with you that character was unnecessary. Like, the whole thing could have played out. She could have got to the silo without that character. But I also agree with you that that's like for the people that are going to see the traditional horror movie. Like, they got to throw those ingredients in those little nuggets of just what you thought you were going to see. When you saw this. And it didn't ruin the movie in any way. Like it was just good. It was just compared to the rest of the movie and how like perfectly refined the rest of the movie was. That part was like, you guys are better than this,
right?
And
maybe
that
that
used a little more finesse, maybe, or just a little tweak to change, or I don't know. But I can't think of a better ending myself, like just right off the top of my head. What I would have done.
In like the final act or the final shot, when you said a better end, you couldn't think of a better ending.
Well, the sequence where they escaped to the silo and the whole thing,
it was
which
good.
I did like, and I liked it seemed kind of like a Deep Blue Sea homage. I mean, I knew it was coming when he's like, I've been here so long, she's never.
That was a Samuel
like the shark
Jackson moment for
like
sure.
the shark busting through.
Yeah, that was I can't believe I forgot about that too until you brought it up. That was a cool moment. That almost makes his character worth it, because it's one more, and they probably needed a few more bodies at the end of this thing. They increased the body count.
I think the reason we kind of forgot it maybe is why it's part of the weaker link in the acts of the structure of the movie, because we forgot it. It was more conventional, and like you said, you saw it coming.
Yeah,
you kind of expected that this was a beat setup for
Yeah.
her to break through.
Among a series of other things that had my brain on
Right,
like
and
the
that's
edge
what
of
we
its
forgot.
seat, not knowing what's going to happen. There's that things like, yeah, this I see what's coming, and it was that makes a lot of sense. That's that I like. We didn't really talk about the ending at all, but that's something that I really liked. Is that the fact that there was like a compassion, like there was a weird rationale to Mother, and the way like I took it as it was like a mercy killing at the end. Like she was giving her permission to kill her, and it was like a weirdly sweet moment. Like there was some strange bond formed, and we barely ever saw them together, but that moment had some kind of weight to it because it felt like there was a real connection there between, which is so weird for a horror movie. Like that's like when the final girl takes down the big baddie. It's like so anticlimactic and sweet. It was a sweet moment. What are you looking at? That? You don't think that was a sweet moment?
Mom's not dead. You know how no mom better not be dead. That bullet ain't got shit on her. This bitch just nosedive from 3,000 feet from the heavens and is alive. I know about our strength. This is God's strength coming. Like, how did she literally nose plant it?
I mean, she landed on Georgina.
And talking a mercy kill, that bullet's not going to do nothing to her. Mom's alive. Don't worry about it. But
you might be onto something. We got sequel material here.
Yeah.
Zach,
I'm out here, baby.
Listening.
I'll play the black bomb.
Yeah.
Put me in the movie.
They could start the sequel with like sequences of Mother and Tess, bonding it down there. Because I feel like when we meet her 3 or 4 weeks later in the dungeon, she's acclimated. Like she's like made the best of it. She's like, at least we got milk. We got
she's almost semi had Stockholm syndrome down there.
Yeah.
Like and even Justin Long's face when he saw that there was another person in there, not thank God there's another human being. He's like, what the hell are you doing here? Like, it was just
my house.
It's my house. Who else is in here, man? Yeah, that if anything for me that I would change, like I said, I wish they would have given us a little bit more of the lore behind it, because this is a classic as it is, but a little bit more of the lore behind Mom. Because again, I'm gonna tell you why, not all of it. What I was going to say is just a little. I don't need them to spoon feed me anything, but it wouldn't be a change; it would be an addition. I wish they would have went a little bit more Tarantino style with this, not with changing anything about the film, but showing us. Don't show it to us in chronological order. Like, let different things be happening at different time. At the end, we have to come to our own conclusion. Like, well, that meant when that happened. Oh, that's when he first got to the house. Oh, we didn't know that. That's why that lady didn't like the neighborhood. Like, if they would have kept, and it kind of did that at one point. Like you said, it's 3 movies. It cuts in and out, but I just would have loved a whodunit style, like Clue, not funny wise, but like the horror wise. Like, damn, I'm still wondering who did what,
So that could be good potential for prequel material.
Yes,
to show you more backstory.
Yes, because I know it's more to that dad, like you say, to the R strength. Maybe he knew about R strength, the bell. Maybe he knew about that. He knew she would be strong and could protect them. Like he knew, and you don't have to show him putting up diagrams and charts, but
Here's my argument. I would like to see it as a prequel if the prequel was done as tightly as this was done. But I think that Barbarian, as it exists, is the perfect package for the horror film. I don't want any more lore. It's one of those things like The Strain. The Strain was terrifying to me until I learned. The more I learned about the Strigoi, and when I saw the Master finally, like, my imagination was doing so much more for me than the more they explained, the more they took away from my imagination, the more they lit up the room and showed me what was in the darkness, the less scared I became. And I think this movie did a really good job at, like,
kept you there.
You didn't really need to know to be
I'm scared of shit.
And like why is he down there doing this shit? How are these people turning into this from being down there? Like little things like that about the lore, it wouldn't have served the story anymore, or the fear of what's happening to the people, the characters.
And one of the other things you saw was that they didn't discuss this. I'm glad you said that. I don't think any of us brought it up. She wouldn't let him die. You notice he had to move that Chester drawer closer to him, so he must have tried to kill himself at one point, and she moved it all the way over there because the gun was in the. Oh yeah, that's what I do, brother. She wouldn't let him die. I don't know if that was a form of punishment, keep him alive. He's been trying to kill himself. Oh, that's what y'all go back. Everybody watch it again tonight, man.
Or maybe he also had his jerking off lotion in that drawer, and she was tired of him.
You talking about Skarsgård now, right?
No, I'm talking now. I'm on Rick. It's just something in the house. It's something in the house.
Yeah, and that's what I love about it. It's rewatchable. And again, when you rewatch it after you've seen it and you know what's going on.
The question: did anybody figure out what the toothbrush was about?
What toothbrush?
There was a toothbrush underneath
Oh,
the
that
sink.
was plugged in on the ground. Like
Whose
sitting on the
was it?
ground.
And
Oh, I
what
thought-
was it
I
about?
assumed that was his. He
Okay.
just had it plugged
But
in there.
they focused on it
Yeah,
a couple
that is
times.
that. I didn't think about that, but yeah,
I
they
thought it was a
did,
camera,
like,
but they didn't show it though. I thought it was a camera.
No, it was a little rechargeable
They did.
toothbrush that was down there. But that is true that they like why put it in, take the time to do an insert
It was
shot
such a
of that.
curious detail.
Because
Yeah.
why would a toothbrush be on the ground? Number one, standing
Right.
standing
That's something.
perpendicular
Well, I
like that
think
is
she was
good.
just surveying. She was trying to like see, is this guy a creep? Is he who he says he is? I think it was showing it to be like, okay, he
Like, you
really
thought
is
it was
just
Skarsgård?
renting here. He plugged this.
But then
Like,
Justin Long shows up and they give you the same shot again. It's like we know the toothbrush is there. Like
Yeah.
I
Right.
think you might be onto something
There
there.
might have been something. I don't
But
know
then
they
again,
had
if you
it-
ask Zach Kreger,
Maybe
he'd
it's
probably be like, "Yeah, it's
endorsed.
just coincidence." That,
Or-
like, we
oh,
come up
no.
with the most crazy theory.
No, you know what that
connection.
might have been. Now I don't. This is the best thing I can come up with is that all those scary things where people spying on people in Airbnbs. Maybe that was just one of those things where somebody had that. They're barbarian too. People are nasty.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Think about it, because all of his stuff was in the travel size bag on the counter. All of his little things. So why we take the time to sit that there?
Right.
It's a
Yeah,
little
that
weird,
could have
man.
been included. That's like another person that had stayed there before. And
Maybe they got funding from Sonicare.
Something
You gotta
happened,
show
man.
toothbrush
Like,
twice.
yeah, that is crazy, man. That is wow.
So I want to start with Justin on this one because you actually were in this situation with Greg. How would you pitch Barbarian to someone to get them to watch it?
That's what's so tricky is because you don't want to give away too much. And a lot of people, the people that really enjoyed the movie, went in almost blind, not knowing. I think maybe I saw one preview for it much earlier in the year, and I had forgotten about it by the time of the release. So the less I knew, the better. And I try not to give away too much for Greg to get him to go along, other than the anagram title thing, or I don't know if I explained
Well,
that,
that was
after.
like right before we walked in the theater. But
Right
you find that out right away.
But probably for me, I'm just saying this is one of the most fun movies I've seen in the theater
Yes.
in a long time. And while the theater wasn't packed, it didn't make a lot of money, surprisingly. The few people that were in it were howling. They're like laughing really loud, and then they were like, I could hear them gasping. There was like 3 or 4. There's a party of 4 or 5 guys behind me, and they were like, "Oh my god, I can't believe this!" I could hear them, every now and then, but they were laughing really loud, and it's just fun to see with people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you hit it on the head. The best way to go into this thing is blind. You don't even need a trailer. Just
Right.
like, man, trust me, man.
Trailers
Go watch
give
it.
away too
Yeah,
much.
but
these days.
how do you get somebody to go into it though? What would you say?
Word of mouth, the same thing he just did.
Just tell them.
Like if I came and told you, you got to see
word
it.
of mouth. But
Okay.
what words?
Right.
Oh,
The fact
oh,
that
there
he
you go.
wanted to see it, not only did he want to see it a second time, he told me he just saw it. He's like, he wanted to see it a second time, and he was going to pay for my ticket. I was like, all right.
Those are the words.
That's how you
Those are the
going on
words.
here.
That
That's how
helps.
you get. That's the elevator pitch. I'm
That-
paying for your ticket. I'm gonna go see it a second time. I'm
Somebody
not-
told you that one time.
Just he said
Don't go
he
digging.
wanted me to see it just so we could talk about it. So,
Right, just so we could talk about it.
Right.
Wow.
And that's what we're doing now.
So, if you could sum it up in like a 30 to 60 second, now we're the local news. This is a bite. If you give it a 1 through 5, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best, and just like a 30-second, 60-second explanation as to, why you think it is what it is.
I'd give it. I'm going to go 4 out of 5 fucks given. I think when you can blend horror and comedy, and a movie can make you like actually like belly laugh, and then also make you squeamish and like maybe not scream, but the jump scare reaction and the total disgust. Like when you can have both of those in one movie, it's like 2 sides of the same coin, kind of. It's like 2 ends of like the extreme emotions that, I mean, that's the kind of thing I like when I go to see movies, is the thrill of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess it's not really a review.
No, I was just thinking about those cages because to your point, they didn't tell us what happened. I didn't want to know. I'm just like, do the babies age out like a youth home or something? Like they're burning them, or there's a lot of cages down there that they didn't explain, which I didn't need. I'm like, this has been going on for quite some time.
It's in a whole operation.
Nobody puts baby in a hole. Hey, do the dance. There we go.
The
What
whole
about you,
less is
Justin?
more thing they
Yeah.
did so well, because
Yeah.
they don't show any footage of the in the flashback of the dungeon, which thankfully, I mean, I don't really like torture
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah,
in
I don't-
movies. But just hearing the screams when he opens the doors, it was enough. It was like, oh my god! Like to me, that's scarier Then just like him opening the door, going to the basement, you hear them screaming, and then combined with the knowledge of seeing the multiple cages and the bed with the bucket, it's like, Jesus.
Oh, that bucket
Christ,
was the
what
scariest
this
thing
guy
out
doing?
there. And that,
I'm glad that we didn't see it, and also
Right.
it's
oh, that
scary.
room
It's
with
scary.
the camera set up and shit. I got chills coming out here when I saw this. I was like, oh, you know what I'm saying? The camera set up, the bucket in the bed. Like, you don't need to play any. That could have just been the cover of the film. I'm like, this is going to be the scariest film of the year.
Yeah.
Like, the fuck's going on in there?
Right.
Yeah. What about you, Justin?
Trying to sum it up, for sure, I'm giving it at least a 4, maybe like a 4.5. It's not perfect, but because it blends horror and comedy, and I believe comedy is maybe the hardest genre to do well and consistently. Comedy is so much harder than it gets credit for. It doesn't get remembered within the award seasons. Like, comedies rarely, if ever, get recognized.
Yeah.
And I think he did so well, and you could tell that was kind of his background, which I've never seen. The Whitest Kids You Know, I'd never seen that, but I knew it was comedy. And so it's almost worthy of comparisons to Jordan Peele, because his same thing, background comedy. If you can do that, you can do horror.
Yeah.
I really think, and he nails both comedy and horror. And it's a tight run time. It broaches some kind of political issues that people can talk about, like Me Too, objectification, like you were talking about earlier.
The cop citizen narrative. Yep.
Police and profiling, and
fear of homeless people.
Not giving,
running at you frantically.
Not giving the voices of the unheard their due.
Shit, and the gentrification of the neighborhood
Yes,
too. That
gentrification.
started the whole thing.
There's a lot of issues.
There's about to be a sign in the yard.
It is like a Candyman companion.
Yeah, the gentrification. Yes.
Yeah.
I feel like he took a lot of notes from Jordan Peele too, just with not just the horror comedy, and then the Nope reference. So it's
sure.
I'm going online to figure out what that toothbrush was about, and I forgot all about that
Right.
toothbrush. I got to find it. Yeah.
But
it's going to tie in with the masturbation on the couch. Somehow.
I can see that happening. Skarsgård.
There was one
It's a
thing
vibrator.
I saw some people. Some people were kind of overreacting to what they had read a synopsis of the movie online, and they said, "Oh no, this is woke trash. This is feminist hating stuff." And I hate it when people judge a movie without even seeing it. It's like, watch the movie at least. So I put a reply to one of these comments. I don't know if it was on YouTube or Facebook or Twitter or whatever, but I said, "Dude, you can't get subtext and nuance from a synopsis, and this movie has those elements, and it's not preachy. It doesn't tell you, it's not pushing an agenda.
Yeah.
Just watch the movie. It's not preachy. It's a fun movie."
You're asking way too much.
And all those
Social media
characters
culture.
exist in the world that we live in.
Social
So
media
it's
has
not like
no
come on.
interest in subtext
Right.
or nuance or anything like that.
So it's like, just watch the movie and then at least give it a fair judgment. And
I
I think most people would end up like the guy who was dismissing it preemptively. He probably would like the movie if he just watched it, but people are so jaded, I guess, now, and they're looking for things to be outraged about.
Yeah.
And then I know I've gone on past 30 seconds, but I feel like there's so much to say about the movie.
No, it is funny though. Like, people are they're up in arms about the minute horror movies have always had something to say. Oh, like, they just weren't called woke in the 80s, but they always had the good horror movies. Like, even Nightmare on Elm Street it was hitting on like child abuse and alcoholism and prescription pills and shit. Like that didn't get called woke because it was trying to call out, the way white suburbia, that the trauma is hidden on the underground of white suburbia. Like, it's really weird how people pick particular things. Like, oh, here comes the social justice warriors again. It's like, no, you can care about something and not be that.
Right.
Like,
It's art. It's to be interpreted. It's art.
And the fact that that is what is guiding like the social narrative in reality right now in movies, especially horror movies, have always reflected something that's going on in reality. They have to have a baseline that's functioning in the reality that we know, or else we don't get any fear out of it. It couldn't happen to us. So yeah, that's a I give it a 4. I give it a 4 because it's rewatchable. I never felt even compelled to go to the bathroom while I was watching it the first time. It is like getting a few movies for the price of one. If you're not into the first act, just hold on about 7 to 10 minutes. It's going to switch things up. and the next one might be it's like 3 different styles of the horror genre, and the way they did like the Fincher upstairs, Rami downstairs.
There you go. There you go.
You're also within the 3 stories that are happening. You're also getting like different styles of film and cinematography that like you never get bored. You never know what's coming, which lends to not feeling bored at all throughout it. You're always on the edge of your seat, which is what every horror movie should aspire to do, both psychologically and literally. And the fact that it's Zach Krager's first like horror film. He did Miss March with Trevor Moore, comedy, but this is like his first venture into horror. He's doing it by himself. He wrote it and directed it. It's really smart and it's done really well. For being the first film, it's a 5, but for being a film in general, it's a 4 in my book.
I give it a 4 for all the reasons you guys said here. I don't disagree with anything that you guys said. I will say this is that it takes itself seriously, and again, it's something you have to pay attention to, and it's a film that, again, like you say, you hit on the rewatchable point. And I love the fact, again, I knew nothing about this film going in. This is one of those times like, yeah, don't research this one, just go into it and watch it. I love that. But I will say this, it's a 4 because I consider it an outing film, I can out you film. And what I mean by that is, if you ever want to know somebody's a little crazy and might be on a little list, watch this movie with that person, and when this scene comes up, like, hey man, I wonder what that bell's for. And if they have an answer within 3 seconds, call the cops. Oh man, I know do that little thing. But no, and all jokes aside, no, the movie is awesome. I'd rewatch it as something. It's one of those movies, you know how you want to show something to somebody and you get excited for them watching it. It is one of those. And so I definitely, it's something I'm gonna add it to my collection. I mean, if that's still a thing now, people just downloading, but I loved it.
All right, there you go, guys. Barbarian, go watch it. Greg and Justin, stick around for 1 minute. Be thinking about the final words that you'd like to leave the audience with. We got a few coming attractions to let them know about this Thursday. Actually, yesterday, because this is a script that was supposed to be read on Tuesday.
There you go.
Yesterday, TTFT talks with Wayne Byrne. He is a film historian. He's also an author. He wrote the book on Nightmare on Elm Street and many more. That conversation with him is live on our channel right now. This Tuesday, we're going to see Avatar: The Way of the Water on Monday. We're going to contribute because you know that James Cameron needs all the box office dollars he can get on this thing. So we're going to help him out. We're going to support the little guys. We're going to go see Avatar 2 on Monday, and we'll be talking about it on Tuesday. We're also going to do a little recap on what we thought about Avatar, the first one, as well. And then on the 22nd, we'll have another episode of Best Seat with David McGiver for you. This one is holiday themed. We're getting into one film that I'm not going to say and another film that I'm also not going to say. Tune in on the 22nd.
Such a
and find
teaser.
out what these things are. On the 27th of this month, we go live for the last time of the year. It'll be our 2022 holiday special, New Year's and all that stuff. I'm not sure exactly what we're doing yet, but I will promise it'll be fun. And there will be alcohol involved.
It's always fun.
Yeah, and Annie will be here.
It's always fun.
Then finally, the last thing that we're posting this year is on Thursday, December 29th. Emma Everywhere gets to close us out. She will be reviewing the brand new Violent Night and also having a much needed discussion on what makes a holiday movie.
And don't forget, that will be cut by a young box cutter. You're going to be in store for a lot of great surprises.
All right, Greg and Justin, what would you, well, before actually that, one more reminder, at the bottom of the screen, this episode is dedicated to the Lackey family. You'll find the link to go to the GoFundMe if you want to help support them in a very difficult time. Not going to rehash all the details again. Just know there's a family out there that desperately needs your help. If you're in the position to give it to them, the link's at the bottom of the screen and you can do that. Even if you're watching this on the rewatch, I'm sure they'll still be in need of this. All right, guys, what do you want to leave the audience with before we say goodbye?
Well, just thanks for having us. It was great fun just having a talk about the movie, and also for mentioning the GoFundMe for them. That's huge. So thank you for that. And we're also doing a benefit show for them January 15th at Eraser Records. That's going to be like a mid-afternoon thing. We don't have a time exactly, but probably around 2 or 3. have like 4 or 5 bands and just be kind of promoting the.
That's if you're in the Jacksonville, Florida area.
In
That's
Jacksonville,
Or if you want to travel.
Yeah, if you want to play, well, it's going to be it's going to be in the Jacksonville, Florida area.
you go.
It's not traveling to you. If you want to travel to it, what date is that again?
January 15th at Eraser Records.
Is there somewhere that they can go, like a page that they could follow now to be updated on that when
Eraser
information-
Records has a Facebook page. I'm sure they'll be promoting it. And
Okay.
then Infinitesimal Records also.
Okay, cool.
If I close my eyes, he sounds like what you call it. What's our guy, Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Oh,
I was wondering that. Well, I've been trying to put it all night.
That's my
Yeah,
guy, man.
there you go. Yeah.
One of my favorites
Yes.
for sure.
Oh, yeah.
The Master. I think I watched that movie on repeat for like a year. I would get like.
He can't get it out of his head now.
Watch.
They do that little thing.
It does sound like a.
What is the song he sings?
I can't remember.
Oh,
To
man.
Joaquin.
Yeah,
Oh, well, it's spoken.
beautiful moment.
Give me 1 second, guys. I'm gonna reset this camera here. Actually, the audio is still on.
Mhm.
Hold on, let me. I need to delete something here.
Do it.
I can't do
No,
it.
not loud.
I can't do that. Okay, we're good. We're
Okay.
good. I'm gonna leave it like that. That'll ride us out.
What's your favorite Philip Seymour Hoffman movie?
Hold on 1 second. I want. All right, we are. I don't have you on the screen anymore. So can you just say? We're here live with Philip Seymour Hoffman. We contacted him from The Great Beyond, and he has a message for you. He wants to tell everybody to be sure to watch TTFT every Tuesday. Go ahead, Philip.
Everybody, please tune in and watch TTFT with Dirt and Royal. They're some of the best in the biz.
Oh, thanks, Phil. That means so much coming from you. The Hoff, everybody.
Back from the grave.
All right.
I love it, man. That was dope.
Justin, any final words to the audience that you'd like to leave?
No, this was a blast. This was fun. Thanks for having us, letting us talk about it and share our enthusiasm.
Can we come back for a Barbarian sequel?
Prequel.
Do it, man.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Zach Kreger, if you're watching,
We want that prequel.
mate.
There we go. I'll help you write it. I promise. This has been fun, man.
Yeah.
It's
But
been
guys, thank you guys for coming out and being a part of this with us. Be sure to share the link with your friends and everything. They can go back and watch the rerun. All right. It is 10. Man, we said 10 or 10:30.
We hit it.
It is 10:15.
Right in between.
Have a safe weekend, everybody.
Please.
We'll see you in Saturday, Sunday, Monday. We'll see you in 4 days with Avatar 2. Until then.
Subscribe.